Chapter 1057. Dark clouds covered the sky above the Shao clan's spirit mountain. Streaks of battle intent shot up into the sky, shattering the sky and intimidating everyone. At this moment, whether it was Shao Shan, Shao Moi, or the other Shao clan disciples, their eyes flickered with extreme shock. They could see numerous figures with terrifying auras stepping out of the ancient warship in an orderly manner. The black and ferocious armor caused many experts from the Shao clan to tremble and almost kneel on the spot. Black Demon Guards. It was the Black Demon Guards. Everyone knew that the world guards of the Realm Lord's palace were righteous. Wherever they went, demons would retreat, and evil would not exist. Among the thousands of clans in the Azure world, there was only one guard that was more famous. It was the Black Demon Guards of the Taigu Ling people. Since the Realm Lord held the immortal demon Ancient Bell 100,000 years ago and dominated the Azure world, the Taigu Ling people had been living in seclusion. No elite had ever walked out of their clan. However, anyone who dared to offend the Ling people, be it the ancient clans or divine dynasties, would be slaughtered by the Black Demon Guards. In the past 100,000 years, no one was lucky. The appearance of the Black Demon Guards meant the end of the world. Their black armor was a taboo in the Azure world. No one was willing to see this color outside the deity battle domain. It was said that an ancient sect with tens of thousands of years of history was massacred overnight because they insulted the Ling people. Thousands of heads were placed in front of the sect. Looking down, it was a Ling character. But why would the Black Demon Guards of the Ling people come to the Shao clan today? Shao Shan fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva as he watched the 10,000 black armored figures silently walk behind the black-clothed young man, and then there wasn't the slightest movement. At that moment, the 10,000 people were all wearing heavy armor, and their auras were vast and mighty. Their murderous battle intent, tempered by endless killing, was not something that ordinary people could compare to. Some of the weaker ones even turned pale and felt cold. They were intimidated by the aura of the Black Demon Guard. Young master of the Ling people? Shao Shan's eyes trembled slightly, and he easily guessed who the young man with peerless beauty was. It was rumored that a young master of the Taigu Ling people had appeared in the world, which was why this great era had begun. In recent days, this young master had demonstrated his righteousness, loyalty, and integrity to the fullest. Regardless of whether it was fighting the Sky Demon, slaying the demon servant, or daring to go against the world for Gu Chao Ci, countless prodigies of this generation were impressed. To put it bluntly, compared to the young master of the Ling people, the young master of the Shao clan was trash. No! In the Azure Firmament realm, all of the young masters of the ancient sects were trash. The ancient emperors, immortals of the mortal world, were nothing more than this. Especially today, when he saw the handsome figure that was surrounded by 10,000 Black Devil Guards, Shao Shan finally understood why so many foolish women had suddenly appeared in the various great clans of the Azure Sky world. They didn't have the heart for the Tao of immortality all day long, and they only knew how to play with flowers in front of mirrors while feeling sad in their hearts. It was said that all of them had seen the Lord Ling Shao before. His immortal appearance was unparalleled in the 9 heavens, and his emperor's aura was obvious. It turned out that this great era really had nothing to do with others. The fate of the human race might be on this young master of the Ling people alone. In another 100 years, no, 60 years, the younger generation of the Azure Sky world would probably be trampled under his feet. Young master, what brings you here? Shao Shan wiped off the cold sweat on his head and bowed to Ling Shao. The Shao clan's foundation was second to none in the entire Azure Sky world. However, the great era had just arrived, and the supreme being experts of the Shao clan had yet to awaken. The strength of the Black Devil Guards was enough to sweep through the Shao clan. Even a 9th-grade sage like Shao Shan would tremble in fear in front of them. Moreover, if the supreme being ancestors of the Shao clan dared to make a move today, the Shao clan would probably be removed from the Azure Sky world later today. Hearing this, Ling Xiao ignored Xiao Shan in front of him. Instead, he lifted his feet and walked towards the center of the square. Behind him, the 10,000 demon guards had just moved, but the young man in front of them did not even turn around. He merely raised his hand, and the 10,000 demon guards immediately stood where they were like statues, exuding a heart-palpitating coldness. These were 10,000 true killing machines. They were emotionless and fearless. They were only loyal to the Ling people. Yao Guang and Xianyuan Weiyang looked at each other. There was a hint of surprise between their brows. They had seen Ling Zhao's anger today. In their impression, the Ling people had always been gentle and reserved. He would not show his emotions easily. However, today he seemed to be really angry. Everyone knew that the Xiao clan had gone into seclusion. How did the Xiao clan offend Ling Xiao to the extent that he led the Black Devil Guards to attack their ancestral land? The entire Spirit Mountain was dead silent. Everyone looked at the young man in black walking over from afar with reverence. He was neither fast nor slow. At this moment, there was not a trace of emotion on his face. However, the coldness in his deep black eyes was like the coldest in the world. No one dared to look him in the eye. Suddenly, some people's faces seemed to tremble. Xiao Wu and the others, in particular, opened their mouths wide and turned to look at the chained Xiao Popper. No way! This fatty was not bragging at all. Was he really the young master of the Ling people's followers? From the beginning to the end, Xiao Moi's brows were tightly knitted. Even his hand that was holding the iron chain unconsciously tightened. His heart was already filled with coldness. However, the situation in front of him was no longer under his control. Ling Xiao. Even though he had heard this name countless times, he still wanted to fight. However, the moment he saw him, Xiao Moi understood that compared to the young master of the Ling people, his light was too dim. Xiao Popper. Greetings, master. In the crowd, Xiao Popper smiled and tears welled up in his eyes. Then, under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, he bowed towards the figure that was walking in front of him. Hum! The sound of a sword suddenly resounded between heaven and earth. A wisp of sword radiance slowly appeared like a primordial mist. It was as fast as an aurora and slashed down with a loud bang. Crack! With a shattering sound, the black chain that was imprisoning Xiao Popper's hands and feet broke with a loud bang, letting out an ear-piercing sound. Xiao Moi lowered his head and looked at the smooth metal chain on the ground. His eyes narrowed. This chain was made of 10,000-year-old cold iron and was extremely hard. Even a saint stage expert would be delusional if he wanted to break it, let alone someone in the venerable stage. However, the young master of the Ling people had broken it neatly with a casual wave of his hand. The appearance of a sword immortal could crush the current generation. Suddenly, everyone seemed to think of the evaluation of Ling Xiao by the masters of the various sacred grounds and immortal sects on the day of his birth. It turned out that the words, "crush the current generation," were not empty words and had nothing to do with identity. Master Ling Xiao really had an invincible emperor aura. You've suffered. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. His gaze swept across the Xiao clan's geniuses in front of him and finally landed on the young master of the Xiao clan, Xiao Moi. Woeful fire body, 7th grade venerable stage, 10,000 providence. There were two types of destiny in this world. One was to go against the odds and defeat immortals, go through numerous tribulations and finally stand at the top of the world. This kind of destiny didn't have high providence at first. They usually advanced through tribulations, pretending to be weak to eat tigers, and became peerless in the world. The other kind was born rich, had heaven-defying talent, killed decisively, and was invincible in their generation. It was obvious that Xiao Popper and Xiao Moi belonged to these two types. Of course, no matter what model, in Ling Zhao's eyes, these so-called destiny were just leaks waiting to be cut. There was no difference at all. Did you tell them that you're my follower? Ling Zhao's eyes were clear and his voice was gentle. There was even a smile on his face. Chapter 1058. My lord, I did, but they said I was bragging and humiliated me. Xiaopa clenched his fists, his expression agitated. He had never felt so carefree before, and it reached deep into his soul. At this moment, there was obvious resentment in his eyes, causing Xiao Wu and the others to feel a chill run down their spines and their hearts to tremble. Oh no! It felt like they were done for. Yes. Ling Xiao nodded slightly and looked up at Xiaomoi. His eyes suddenly flashed with extreme coldness. How dare you touch my follower? Master Ling Xiao listened to my explanation. Before Xiaomoi could speak, Xiao Wu, who was beside him, had already taken a step forward with a pleading expression. But, just as he finished speaking, a clear ray of light bloomed from the sky and chopped off his head. Blood splattered all over the ground. Gulp! The Xiao clan's disciples trembled, and despair appeared on their faces. They all looked at Xiaomoi with pleading expressions. Imprisoning Xiao Po was completely this young master's idea. In fact, only Xiaomoi knew where Xiao Yue had gone back then. However, although this young master Ling Xiao was decisive in killing, he might not kill Xiaomoi. This anger was most likely going to be vented on them, the extras. Young Master Ling Xiao, aren't you being too overbearing? Xiaomoi frowned and sighed in his heart. He walked to the front of the crowd. Everything that happened today was because of him. In other words, whether it was Xiao Yue or Xiao Po, they were ants that he could completely control. The reason Xiao Po was not dead was because of the time Dao law on him. If he could take the initiative to submit, the Xiao clan would definitely usher in a great era. Unfortunately, Xiao Yue had already been punished by Xiaomoi for provoking the clan. The conflict between the two could be said to be irreconcilable. Therefore, Xiaomoi decided to refine Xiao Po into a puppet today to prevent future trouble. However, although the puppet was loyal, it no longer had the opportunity to cultivate. It was also a loss for the Xiao clan. However, Xiaomoi would never have dreamed that such an ant-god emperor would actually be involved with the young master of the Ling people. What he did not expect was that the young master of the Ling people would be willing to go against the Xiao clan for an ant. Domineering. Ling Xiao shook his head, and his gaze suddenly landed on Tingzidu. In an instant, the elder of Xiao clan felt a chill run down his spine as he fled into the distance. Those I want to kill cannot escape. Ling Xiao raised his head and said calmly. Just as he finished speaking, the 10,000 black jade guards suddenly raised their halberds and shouted in unison, Die! Boom! Between the heavens and the earth, endless blood chi wriggled and turned into a divine ocean. A demonic figure stepped out of the blood ocean. He was covered in black armor and held a 1,000-foot-long halberd in his hand. On the other hand, Tingzidu felt the surrounding space suddenly become heavy as if he'd fallen into a swamp, and it was even difficult for him to escape. Then, the demonic figure's eyes flickered with scarlet light. He swung his halberd horizontally, shattering the blue sky and obliterating tens of thousands of daos. At that moment, everyone could only see the sea of blood churning above their heads as the void shattered. It was as if thousands of soldiers were galloping, and war horses neighed in unison. Before the halberd could land, Tingzidu spat out blood, and his aura weakened. It was obvious that his Dao heart had been scared out of its wits. Boom! In the end, the blood halberd landed and crushed the entire space connected to Tingzidu. In fact, wherever the halberd light passed, even the spirit mountains below were shattered. If not for the fact that the Xiao clan disciples were all attracted here, this halberd would have killed thousands of innocent souls. At that moment, everyone was shocked, and their eyes were filled with fear as they looked at Ling Xiao. Was the young master of the Ling people really going against the Xiao clan for a servant? However, at the thought of how terrifying the Xiao clan was, even Xiao Shan surprisingly remained silent. At this moment, he thought that as long as Ling Xiao vented his anger and killed the few people involved, this matter would be resolved on its own. Ling people and the Shao clan would each take a step back, and everything would be fine. As long as Ling Xiao did not attack Xiao Moi today, this farce would not be considered a disaster. Spare my life. Master Ling Xiao, we really did not know that this despicable Xiao was your servant. Please spare my life, young master. A look of despair appeared on the faces of the remaining Shao clan disciples. Although Elder Ting was not a member of the Shao clan, he had an extremely high status in the Shao clan. Now, even he had been killed by the Black Demon Guard with a single halberd strike. They probably had no chance of survival. Spare your life? Despicable Xiao has already revealed his identity, but you still imprisoned and tortured him. This crime is unforgivable. Ling Xiao's eyes were clear, and his voice was extremely calm. He had purposely made this trip to let the entire Azure Sky world know that no one could touch Ling Xiao's servant. Regardless of whether it was the hidden ancient clans or the major sects of the Divine Imperial Court, anyone who dared to touch him would be killed. In this way, there was no need to worry that no one would submit to him. No one would be moved? I, Ling Xiao, am the light of the righteous path. Although I am cruel and ruthless to my enemies, anyone who sincerely submits to me can enjoy supreme respect in this world. Young masters and saints can be trampled under my feet. Do you think some lowly people of the heavenly mandate will take the initiative to seek protection? Hearing this, their legs trembled and they fell to the ground with a plop. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Young Master Moi, please save us. Master Ling Xiao, today's matter is indeed a misunderstanding of the Shao clan. I hope you can be magnanimous and stop before going too far. Xiao Moi took a deep breath, and a trace of battle intent flashed in his eyes. It was obvious that Ling Xiao did not intend to let him off easily. However, he, Xiao Moi, was born to be above everyone. How could he be easily suppressed by others? Even if Ling Xiao did not dare to kill him today, but this attitude had already caused his Dao heart to be covered in dust. In terms of cultivation, it was a demonic barrier. Stop before going too far? Ling Xiao walked to Xiao Pao's side and picked up the cold iron chain from the ground. It's not impossible. Tie it up yourself and let me slip away for a year. I'll let you live. What? The expressions of the Shao clan disciples and Xiao Shan changed instantly. The suppressed anger on their faces finally surfaced uncontrollably. Judging from young Master Ling Xiao's words, he did not intend to let Xiao Moi off today. However, to be chained up and led by his side like a dog was a great humiliation even for an ordinary clansman, let alone a young master of the Shao clan. It was more humiliating than death. Ling Xiao, you've gone too far. Xiao Moi's face darkened. He had already admitted defeat, but he did not expect Ling Xiao to be so domineering that he wanted to make him a dog. Do you really want to start an immortal war between the Shao clan and the Ling people because of a God Emperor ant? A God Emperor ant? An immortal war? Ling Xiao shook his head and chuckled. Immortal power suddenly surged around him, and thousands of avatars pressed down on the world, shocking everyone. Forget about God Emperors, even if it's just a mortal, in my eyes, no one in this world can bully them. Moreover, I don't think the Shao clan will dare to become enemies with the Ling people because of an ignorant fool like you. Chapter 1059. What? You? Xiao Moi's expression froze. He saw the hesitation in clan leader Xiao Shan's eyes and swallowed the words he was about to say. At this moment, he suddenly realized that even though he was gifted and blessed by the heavens, he was still pitifully small compared to the Ling people, who had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Yes, his talent was enough for him to reach the Supreme Being level or even higher. However, the process would be very dangerous, and there was a chance that he would die at any time. In other words, a prodigy who had not grown up was only worth a word of pity. If not for Ling Xiao, Xiao Moi would be the Shao clan's god of destiny, and would have everything. But now, if the entire Shao clan fell into eternal damnation because of him, then he would be an abandoned pawn. For the Shao clan, which had existed for hundreds of thousands of years, blood ties were too insignificant. Especially those supreme being ancestors who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years, they would not use their lives to protect a mere supreme being junior. Even though Xiao Moi was extremely talented, it seemed that there was still someone like Ling Xiao in this generation. It would be difficult for him to lead the Shao clan back to the top. So, what was there to hesitate about? Kill yourself and leave your corpse intact. If I attack, Ling Xiao looked down at the people at his feet and saw that these proud prodigies of the Shao clan had turned pale and were foaming at the mouth. It was obvious that they had wet their pants. Ba. In the distance, Yaoguang put her palms together and chanted a Buddhist chant. Buddha intent seemed to surge on her white robe, but the red lotus between her eyebrows was emitting layers of demonic light. She did not know why, but when she saw Ling Xiao's words and actions, she did not feel a trace of cruelty. Instead, she felt an inexplicable excitement. Ling Xiao was probably the only person in the entire Azure continent who dared to fight an entire clan for a slave. Yaoguang finally understood why this young man was so angry today. It was because his follower had been humiliated. He was very different. He was completely different from the Ling Xiao in her memory. In fact, his decisiveness in killing and his peerlessly domineering attitude caused others to be inexplicably fascinated. The Buddha was compassionate towards all living things. He did not kill. Instead, he used his compassion to redeem heaven and earth and to redeem people's sins. However, when she saw the injuries on destitute benefactor Zhao's body, she suddenly felt that the Buddhism she practiced was truly too merciful. Just like in the past, when she tempered her Buddhist heart and transformed into Yuan Yao, she thought that compassion could save the world. However, in the end, it was her compassion and her Buddha nature that caused the deaths of the Western frontier's geniuses who followed her. Ba. But how could this be? How could I have such demonic thoughts? Namo, drink the Ravana Doroi. Namo, Adifir, Palyaji Emperor, Shuburoi. Beep. Congratulations to host for plundering 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. Hearing the system's voice, Ling Zhao's eyes turned cold and a smile appeared on his face. Master! Right at this moment, Despicable Xiao suddenly raised his head and looked at Ling Xiao with a miserable gaze. I have a presumptuous request. Speak. Ling Zhao's expression did not change, but he had already guessed what Despicable Xiao wanted. The reason he was in such a state today was definitely because of his sister, whom he had not seen for 300 years. Judging from Xiao Moi's attitude, Despicable Zhao's sister had most likely been privately dealt with by him. As such, the hatred between the two of them could not be compromised or eased. My sister Xiao Yu Er's whereabouts are unknown. I hope that Master can help me find her. Despicable Xiao bowed and did not get up for a long time. Tears had already formed a pool under his feet, showing his sorrow. Hearing this, Ling Xiao nodded slightly and walked to one of the Xiao clan's geniuses. He grabbed her hair and picked her up from the ground. Young Master Moi! Young Master, save me! The young girl was powerless. Even though she was in the venerable realm, just a wisp of Ling Zhao's aura was enough to easily crush her. At this moment, she had an illusion that if this young master of the Ling people wanted to kill her, he would probably be able to do so with just a finger. Ling Xiao. Xiao Moi took a deep breath. When he saw that everyone in the Xiao clan was intimidated by the 10,000 demon guards, a trace of sorrow immediately appeared in his eyes. In the end, he had underestimated the Ling people and overestimated himself. The legendary method of being protected by others and the old coming out after beating up the young was only suitable for this person who beat him up had no background. To the various ancient clans, the word Ling people was like a lofty mountain and a deep sea. Unless it was absolutely necessary, no one was willing to provoke them easily. It seemed that he could only personally end this farce today. This matter was caused by me alone. Put her down and we will have a fair battle. A fair battle? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. If not for the fact that Xiao Moi had 10,000 providence, he would not even be bothered to show off here. At this moment, his actions were only to attack this person's Tao heart, seize his providence, and reap the final harvest. At the same time, Ling Xiao also wanted to let Yao Guang see with his own eyes that there were some sins in this world that could not be forgiven by putting down the butcher's knife. Evil people should be sharpened with a bloody blade. Speak, where is Xiao Yu'er? Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at the proud daughter of the Xiao clan who could no longer stand. His expression was extremely gentle. I don't know, Pucci. The lightning in Ling Xiao's hand suddenly flourished and engulfed the young girl in one breath. What about you? You don't know either? Ling Xiao turned to look at the people kneeling in front of him, and a bright smile appeared on his face. I don't know. I really don't know. Please, young master. Ling Xiao. I am the only one in the entire Xiao clan who knows where Xiao Yu'er is. Stop. Xiao Moi took a step forward and blocked in front of Ling Xiao. His expression had completely calmed down. At this moment, no matter how much resentment he had, it was useless. He should not rely on anyone to fight for the immortal path. Smack. However, just as he was about to fight with Ling Xiao, Xiao Shan's figure suddenly descended from the sky and ruthlessly slapped him in the face. Xiao Moi's figure was immediately sent flying, and even a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that Xiao Shan's slap was done with all his heart. You little bastard, you still dare to act cool in front of Master Ling Xiao when you're about to die. Xiao Shan gritted his teeth and looked at Xiao Wu bitterly. Even he had never thought that this concubine descendant of the Xiao clan, who had disappeared for more than 300 years, would actually be able to climb up to the Ling people's young master. However, Xiao Moi was the current young master of the Xiao clan, and his life was far more precious than Xiao Wu and the rest. If he didn't want to die, it was best for him to obediently follow Ling Xiao's instructions and reveal Xiao Yu'er's whereabouts. This way, he might still have a chance of survival. Hurry up and tell me where Xiao Yu'er was sent to buy you. Xiao Moi was indeed not to blame for what happened back then. Xiao Yu'er was unruly and willful. She insisted that the Xiao clan was cowardly and did not dare to provoke the Foliaceae. As the young master of the Xiao clan, Xiao Moi had only punished her according to the clan's rules. However, who would have thought that Xiao Wu, who had disappeared for 300 years, would actually return unscathed and bring the Ling people's young master with him? Ha 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 ha! Xiao Moi slowly stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes suddenly bloomed with a bone-deep fighting spirit. Ling Xiao, since you want to stand up for Xiao Wu, then have a fair fight with me. If you win, I'll naturally be at your disposal. But if you lose, Xiao Wu will die. Do you dare? Chapter 1060. How dare you? Xiao Moi, are you out of your mind? How dare you provoke Master Ling Xiao? Xiao Shan frowned and shouted angrily. With Xiao Moi's talent, he might be completely crushed by Ling Xiao in less than 100 years. But now, this young master of the Ling people had just appeared. Although he had a few famous battles, whether it was Ji Ying or Shi Haotian, in Xiao Shan's eyes, they were all weaker than Xiao Moi. And once he really won later, the Xiao clan would be in a real dilemma. Ling Xiao's immortal beauty was unique in the 9 heavens. However, Xiao Moi's physique was too evil. That poisonous fire was not something an Exalt Realm cultivator could withstand. What good would come of slapping the Taigu Ling people in the face for the Xiao clan? It's fine. Ling Xiao waved his hand and raised his head to look at Xiao Moi, who was filled with fighting spirit. We, the Ling people, never bully others, but not everyone can be bullied. Since you, Xiao Moi, are the one who imprisoned my follower, no matter who comes today, you will die. Since you want to fight me, I will give you this chance. With that, Ling Xiao did not look at Xiao Shan anymore. He turned into a graceful swan and rushed towards Xiao Moi. Seeing this, Xiao Shan's eyes trembled. In the end, he did not dare to say anything and sighed softly. In the entire Azure Sky realm, only this young master of the Ling people dared to be so presumptuous in his Xiao clan. However, Xiao Moi was indeed in the wrong in this matter. He had wrongly imprisoned Xiao Pong and tortured him. However, he still could not figure it out. Although Xiao Moi was arrogant, he was not someone who could not see the big picture. Why was he so willful today, and insisted on forcing Ling Xiao to fight with him? Of course, even if Xiao Shan was cunning, he did not expect that once Ling Xiao and Xiao Pong found out about Xiao Yuer's whereabouts, they would probably order 10,000 demon guards to skin Xiao Moi and cut him into 1,000 pieces. Therefore, he could only defeat Ling Xiao and kill Xiao Pong in this battle to have a chance of survival. How arrogant! Ling Xiao, everyone says that you are invincible. Today, I want to see if you are worthy of the word invincible. Xiao Moi gritted his teeth and took a step forward. Flames surged around his body, and his figure inexplicably grew several meters taller, like a flame god that had accidentally landed in the mortal world. This was especially true for the jade-green-colored flames. They were like the flames of hell, and they were filled with boundless coldness. The Calamity Fire body was a terrifying physique that was rarely seen in the world. It was said that the poisonous flame could corrode one's spiritual power and cultivation. Once touched, one would be doomed eternally. Facing Ling Xiao, although Xiao Moi did not underestimate him in the slightest, he did not dare to use the poison within. After all, if the young master of the Ling people had really died in the Xiao clan's ancestral land, the entire Xiao clan would have to face the wrath of the Ling people, let alone Xiao Moi. At that moment, Xiao Moi rose into the air and extended his hand. Behind him, numerous jade-fire spirit arrows floated in the air. Flame seal, 3,000 arrows. Arrow! Buzz! An ear-piercing buzzing sound reverberated throughout the world. Countless arrows immediately pierced through the blue sky, destroying the heavenly path, and fell toward Ling Xiao at an unstoppable speed. Everyone saw thousands of streaks of light streak across the sky like a sea of meteors. Even saints felt a chill in their hearts when they saw such power. Amitabha. Yao Guang frowned slightly. The Buddhist light around her was dazzling, and thousands of Buddhist lotuses floated under her feet. Although she already had some understanding of Ling Xiao's strength, Xiao Moi was indeed the young master of the Xiao clan. The scorching aura that filled the air of the arrows made her feel uneasy. But, just as Yao Guang lifted her foot and was about to walk toward Ling Xiao, she saw the latter's figure facing the countless arrows and going against them. This, in the ancestral land of the Xiao clan, all the disciples stared dumbfounded at the black-robed figure who rose into the air. Their eyes were filled with shock and astonishment. This flame seal technique was Xiao Moi's famous technique. Back when the Xiao clan conquered the lower region, Xiao Moi had used these 3,000 arrows to kill the living beings of an entire realm. Any cultivator who was touched by this arrow would be incinerated and turned into ashes. Xiao Moi became famous in one battle. However, everyone could not understand why the young master of the Ling people did not avoid such a terrifying attack but took the initiative to face it. Judging from the young master's appearance, he did not seem to be a fool. Buzz! Just as everyone was pondering and puzzled, they saw that the moment the arrow landed, flames suddenly surged around Ling Xiao's body and turned into a pair of flaming wings, enveloping his body. It was a pair of flame wings with two distinct colors. One was black and the other was gold. Both were emitting a monstrous heat. The moment Xiao Moi's arrows fell on the flame wings, they mysteriously disappeared without a trace. This strange scene not only shocked the Xiao clan members, but also stunned Yao Guang. Her foot, which was about to take a step forward, froze on the spot. At this moment, she was looking at the young man who defied the heavens with a complicated gaze. For a moment, She really wanted to be the pair of wings on his back. It was a kind of hope that was engraved in her bones and blood. She would not regret it even if she died. Suddenly, Yaoguang's eyes widened. Countless images flashed in her mind. Among them, there was a figure standing at the top of the sky. It was extremely blurry. However, gradually, it overlapped with the young man who defied the heavens in front of her. Boom! Yaoguang's pretty face paled. She felt a sharp pain in her heart. Her beautiful brows were filled with confusion. At this moment, she seemed to feel that the heart she had lost was not the heart of Buddha at all. Elder sister Yaoguang, what's wrong? Xianyuan Weiyang was stunned. She turned to look at Yaoguang, only to see that the Arhat no longer looked like an enlightened monk. Especially the sadness in her beautiful eyes, it inexplicably made people feel a little terrified. How could she not be disappointed? How could she not regret it even if she died 9 times? I am fine, Yaoguang gently shook her head. She chanted a Buddhist mantra, but she could no longer calm her heart. Boom! At this moment, Ling Zhao's figure finally broke through the 3,000 arrows and appeared in front of Xiaomoi. Then, he calmly extended his palm. Boom! Towering divine flames surged into the sky and turned into a flaming square seal out of thin air. Everything in the world gathered in the palm of his hand. Especially the gold and black colors. They were like apocalyptic flames that exuded endless killing intent. Ling Xiao formed a seal with one hand and pressed it down on Xiaomoi, who had a frightened expression on his face. Buzz! A buzzing sound reverberated through the air. An astonishing fluctuation shattered the void and destroyed the universe. Xiaomoi only saw a stream of light flickering. His eyes were instantly filled with endless fear and surprise. He also stretched out his palm and collided with the spirit seal. Boom! Heaven and earth were overturned and clouds surged. A figure suddenly fell from the sky and smashed through the ancient palace. There was no more movement. Everyone's eyes widened. They raised their heads to look at the black-clothed figure standing in the sky. It was peerless and intimidating. Xiaomoi lost. With just one move, he was defeated. Chapter 1061. Beat. The Chosen One's Tao heart has been shattered. Congratulations to the host for plundering 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. Ling Xiao was not surprised at all when he heard the system notification. He had not used his full strength when he used the technique just now. Since Xiaomoi had comprehended the fire body and used it as a cheat, what he wanted to do was not only to crush and harvest him, but also to trample on him in the way he was best at. He wanted him to misunderstand that Ling Xiao was also good at controlling fire. Then, he would use other more powerful techniques to make this chosen one understand that he did not need to use any trump cards to kill him. This way, no matter how tough his Tao heart was, it would be completely shattered. Young Master Moi lost? Countless members of the Xiao clan stared blankly at the figure in the fallen hall. Their eyes were filled with sorrow. Ling Zhao's immortal beauty was well known throughout the world. However, they did not expect that the dignified young master of the Xiao clan, who was known as the most talented person in the Xiao clan in the past 10,000 years, would be suppressed by Ling Xiao with one seal. What kind of heavenly might and dominance was this? No wonder Ling Xiao was regarded as invincible even though he was not in the sequence. Boom! At that moment, a wave of fire suddenly swept through the collapsed ancient hall, annihilating the dust. Immediately after, a figure surrounded by green flames walked over slowly. Although there was a gloomy look between his brows, his expression was still calm. Master Ling Xiao is indeed peerless. Xiaomoi sighed softly. The flames in his eyes danced, and there was an indescribable eeriness in them. When he fought with Ling Xiao earlier, he did not dare to use the poison of misfortune. He was afraid that the young master of the Ling people would be poisoned to death on the spot. However, he did not expect Ling Xiao to be so talented in the path of fire. One had to know that even the most famous sacred fire sect in the Azure world only had the sect master and the young master, who each controlled a heaven and earth spirit fire. It was said that the young master had suffered serious injuries when he melted the fire, and had not recovered yet. But this Ling people's young master actually dared to merge two spiritual fires into his body. Should it be said that he had extraordinary talent, or was it because of fate? Young Master Moi was fine. Young Master can still fight. Upon seeing the flaming figure descending from the sky, many disciples of the Shao clan exclaimed in surprise. Unfortunately, you're too weak. You're so weak that I'm not interested in you at all. Ling Shao shook his head slightly with a calm expression. However, when these words fell into Shao Moi's ears, his face instantly froze, and a sense of resentment surged through his body. Is that so? Then you must be careful, young master. Those who touch my flames of calamity will die instantly. There is no antidote in this world. Shao Moi sneered. He suddenly stomped on the ground and turned into an afterimage as he rushed toward Ling Shao. Under his feet, the bluestone floor seemed to be unable to withstand the poison of calamity and began to crumble. Evil fog rose up in all directions between heaven and earth, blocking everyone's vision. Even the disciples of the Shao clan retreated, afraid that they would be contaminated by the poison contained in the flames and end up dying. Moi! No! Shao Shan's expression changed drastically. What was truly terrifying about the Calamity Fire body was not the power of fire awakened in the bloodline, but the word calamity. 100,000 years ago, it was said that there was a calamity poison body in the Shao clan. As a saint, he was unrivaled in the Azure Sea. Even some Supreme Being-level powerhouses did not dare to provoke him. At that time, the Shao clan was unparalleled. However, an overly monstrous constitution would eventually attract jealousy and fear. In the end, that ancestor offended too many people and was surrounded by several immortal forces in the center of the Azure Sea. He was killed. This was also the reason why the Shao clan had remained hidden from the world. Now, Shao Moi's awakened constitution was even more terrifying than the calamity poison body. This was because the divine flame sacred body was the inheritance of the Shao clan's ancestor. Not only did Shao Moi inherit the ancestor's bloodline, but he also awakened the calamity poison body. In the eyes of Shao Shan and the others, as long as he could cultivate to the saint stage, the Shao clan could reappear. After 100,000 years of accumulation, the Shao clan now had many experts, and they would not be as unprepared as before. However, Shao Shan did not expect that Shao Moi would provoke Ling Shao. The scene of the Ling people's patriarch killing a heavenly sovereign from thousands of miles away was still vivid in his mind. No matter how deep the Shao clan's foundation was, they did not dare to bet the fate of the clan on Shao Moi. If Ling Shao were to die in the Shao clan today, the myriad Tao of the Spirit Peak would turn into a pile of rubble and lose its charm. Boom! However, just as Shao Shan took a step forward and was about to stop Shao Moi, the black-robed youth had already turned into a graceful swan and collided with Shao Moi's figure. This time, Ling Shao did not use the power of the spiritual fire at all. He only stretched out his palm. It was calm and eternal, as if the poisonous flames that were unparalleled in the eyes of the world were not a threat to him at all. Flame seal, calamity, heavenly punishment. Shao Moi frowned slightly. As his hands moved, a flame seal that was 100 feet long suddenly appeared in the air and enveloped Ling Zhao's figure with an aura that could suppress eternity. At this moment, he had no way out. If Ling Shao did not lose today, he would die. The wind and clouds in the void suddenly changed. A vast and unparalleled scorching power swept out, causing rumbles in all directions. Both humans and gods feared it. In particular, the layers of poisonous patterns that lingered on the divine seal revealed endless evil. It was as if a wisp of it could destroy one's soul and make it difficult to break free. Under the flame seal, a figure pierced through the void, broke through the poisonous fog, and struck out with his palm with the aura of a heavenly immortal. Compared to the flame seal that was 100 feet long, Ling Zhao's figure was pitifully small. Even so, there was not the slightest hint of panic on his face. The calamity poison was indeed undefeatable in the world. However, his sky demon body was a taboo of the 9 heavens. Back then, the Phoenix Rouge's sky poison did not hurt him at all, let alone this calamity poison. Boom! In the end, the flame seal fell and enveloped the entire blue sky. The void shattered, and multicolored light fell. Yao Guang and Xianyuan Weiyang clenched their jade-like hands nervously. Their eyes flashed with intense worry. Judging from the power of the poison seal, even a saint would not dare to fight it head-on. However, the young master was willing to use his own strength to intimidate an ancient clan for a servant. In particular, his attitude revealed that he had no regrets. Inexplicably, it reminded people of Xianyuan Emperor's righteousness when he sealed the sky with his saint blood. Today I, Xiaomoi, will bear the title of invincible. In the sky, Xiaomoi stood with his hands behind his back, his expression indifferent. Ling Xiao was very strong, but in the end, he was only a stepping stone on his path to immortality. Killing the young master of the Taigu Ling people would definitely put him in endless danger. However, today, everyone saw that the two of them had a fair battle. The dead were the weak. Even if the Ling people took revenge, in Xiaomoi's eyes, it was just a tribulation to forge his path to immortality. Chaotic times have arrived. I, Xiaomoi, will lead the Xiao clan back to the peak of the world. Ling people, Realm Lord Palace. It will only be a trial for my Dao heart. Crack. But, just as Xiaomoi's eyes were calm and there was a faint smile on his face, a crisp shattering sound suddenly came from the sea of fire below him. Chapter 1062. Buzz Buzz. Poisonous flames surged in the vast blue sky. However, a ray of divine light suddenly shot into the sky amidst the blue waves. It pierced through the layers of poisonous miasma and pierced through the 100-foot-long flame seal. Immediately after, without waiting for the smile on Xiaomoi's face to disappear, he saw the figure of a divine radiance walking through the sky. There seemed to be a river of stars flowing beneath his feet, and even the entire space and time in this area had been completely frozen. How is this possible? Xiaomoi's lips trembled slightly. He felt a chill run up his spine to the top of his head. In the next moment, the young man's fair and slender palm had already pushed horizontally. Roar! A true dragon roared in the 9 heavens and descended from the clouds. Sometimes it turned into a seal, sometimes it turned into a dragon. Xiaomoi's hair stood on end. Under this seal, he actually saw the other side of time and the end of the world. No. I can't die. Flame armor, Yu Tianming. As Xiaomoi's roar fell, green flames began to curl around his body. They condensed and turned into armor. However, the moment the dragon seal descended, extreme fear clearly appeared in Xiaomoi's eyes. Then, his figure was smashed down from the sky by the golden dragon seal like an ant. It shattered the spiritual mountain tens of thousands of feet high. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. Gulp. Everyone looked at the bottomless ravine in the middle of the square. There was nothing but shock in their eyes. Invincible. In fact, at this moment, everyone felt that from the beginning to the end, the young master of the Ling people did not seem to have used his full strength. He played it down and casually and naturally. With 2 palms, he crushed a 7th-stage venerable realm cultivator, a peerless monster who was regarded as the next leader of the Xiao clan for the next 100,000 years. All of a sudden, Xiao Shan felt somewhat lucky. Fortunately, he did not become enemies with Ling Xiao because of Xiaomoi. Now, it seemed that even if Xiaomoi used the poison of disaster, he could not hurt Ling Xiao at all. In this way, how could he lead the Xiao clan to fight for the heavens? Ling people have the sky, and this world will prosper. Prosper. shake the world for 90,000 miles. Beat. The Tao heart of the child of destiny has been shattered. Congratulations to the host for plundering 5,000 luck points and 50,000 villain points. Master. Xiao Moi wouldn't. Xiao Pa glanced at Ling Xiao with slight nervousness, and he was deeply afraid Ling Xiao would use a slight bit of force and annihilate this Xiao clan's young master on the spot. In this way, Xiao Yu's whereabouts would become a complete mystery. Don't worry. Ling Xiao shook his head, a cold glint in his eyes. Killing Xiao Moi was not his only goal on this trip. According to Ling Xiao's guess, Xiao Yu's end would most likely be extremely miserable, and he wanted to let Yao Guang see with his own 2 eyes what the end of compassion would be. Cough, cough. A weak cough suddenly came from the distant abyss. Then, everyone saw a figure covered in blood crawling out of the abyss with difficulty. The aura around his body had already withered to the extreme. At this moment, all the bones in Xiao Moi's body were broken. Even his elixir C was completely shattered by Ling Xiao's seal. Of course, the reason why he didn't die was because he still had some residual heat. Ling Xiao didn't want him to die. Pucci. However, before Xiao Moi could get up from the ground, Ling Xiao had already descended from the sky and stepped on his head. No, don't. Xiao Moi cried out in despair, his face filled with fear. Once a person put down their dignity, they would no longer have any bottom line. Xiao Yu, where are you? Ling Xiao said indifferently. His eyes shone with a myriad of light, like the might of the heavens pouring down, completely intimidating Xiao Moi's already terrified and shattered Tao heart. In the demon origin world. What? Demon origin world? In the distant crowd, Xiao Shan was stunned, and a trace of panic suddenly appeared on his face. This world was the lower realm of the Xiao clan, but the living beings here were somewhat special. They were all descendants of barbarian demons, or humans and demons. They were cruel and abnormally tyrannical, but their strength was not bad. Back then, Xiao Shan wanted to completely destroy this world, but in the end, Xiao Moi appeared and suppressed this world, causing it to submit to the Xiao clan. Could it be that Xiao Yu or Xiao Shan swallowed hard? When he looked at Xiao Moi again, there was no longer any bitterness and hesitation in his eyes. Instead, there was a hint of determination. Demon origin world? Xiao Ping's expression changed. He suddenly stepped out and rushed towards the border of the Yin-Yang region. Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at the gloomy Xiao Shan. He said indifferently, Xiao clan master. Master Ling Xiao. The corners of Xiao Shan's eyes trembled as he hurriedly bowed towards Ling Xiao. Are all your patriarchs dead? Not a single one of them has appeared. However, Ling Xiao's next sentence caused Xiao Shan's expression to freeze, and a trace of uneasiness suddenly appeared in his heart. Forget it. Xiao clan's young master Xiao Moi imprisoned my follower and almost tortured him to death. Since he's still so cruel to his own clan, it can be seen that his nature is not right. Today I will cripple his Dan Si bloodline. Does anyone have any objections? Ling Xiao's clear voice pierced through the clouds and resounded throughout the entire Xiao clan. Upon hearing this, the entire Xiao clan remained silent. Even the honorable ancestors, who were in seclusion, didn't dare to reply. Very good. We, the Ling clan, will never take advantage of our power to bully others, but we will not be bullied for nothing. This incident has a great impact on the reputation of the Ling clan. I hope that the Xiao clan can give me an explanation when I return from the demon origin sector. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked towards the depths of the spiritual mountains. He had to kill people, and he had to kill them until they were deeply grateful. That was prestige. Of course, if everyone thinks that the Xiao clan is not wrong, there is no need for that. With that, Ling Xiao no longer hesitated. He reached out and picked up the iron chain from the ground. He put it around Xiao Moi's neck and dragged him onto the ancient warship. Then, he led the 10,000 Black Devil Guards and left. From the beginning to the end, Xiao Shan did not move. The The Shao clan's ancestors did not dare to say a word. Seeing this, countless disciples of the Shao clan were filled with despair. They did not even dare to harbor any resentment. With the strength of the Ling people, the supreme ancestors could have come and used this as an excuse to suppress the Shao clan. However, Lord Ling Shao did not bully others. Instead, he limited his grudges to those of the same generation and used a fair battle to prove his reputation. Such courage and magnanimity were truly worthy of respect and admiration. All of a sudden, everyone sighed with emotion. Being a follower of the young master was truly a very honorable thing. However, at this moment, looking at Xiao Moi, who was like an animal without any dignity, Yao Guang could not bear to see it. Ba, young master, since he is already lost, why do you have to humiliate him? Ling Xiao stood on the ancient warship and turned to look at Yao Guang. Just one look was enough to make the Brahma Arhat's delicate body tremble. She seemed to see a sea of blood floating in front of her, and she thought of many scenes in the lower world. One should be kind, but one should not be without a bottom line. Otherwise, the compassion you think is cruel to others. Ling Zhao's expression was calm as he looked into the distance. I cultivate to protect the thoughts in my heart and what my eyes see. Those who offend me, even if they are immortals or Buddhas, will be killed no matter how far away they are. Yao Guang's eyes trembled. However, she could not open her mouth when she was about to say the words of Buddha. At this moment, she suddenly realized that Ling Zhao's body was flickering with light. It shone into the 9 heavens and the 10 earth. He was the only one in the world, and no enemy could invade him. This domineering aura of the 9 heavens made her Buddhist nature disappear. She was inexplicably fascinated. I have 3 loves. The sun and the moon are not as good as you. Chapter 1063. Boom! The demon origin world, like the Xingzhou, was a lower world under the Shao clan. However, in this world, the heavenly order was complete and had not been sealed. Therefore, there were many people in the venerable realm. In any world, there would always be a division of forces that controlled the world. Although the demon origin world was a land of barbarian demons, there was an ancient dynasty that ruled over all. This dynasty was called the Golden Light Dynasty and was led by the Golden Eagle barbarian tribe. At this moment, in front of the ancient dynasty's temple, a middle-aged man in a golden robe with a gloomy appearance was holding a white jade bowl. There were some exquisite pastries in the bowl. He clicked his tongue and fed a creature in a golden silk cage in front of him. However, upon closer inspection, the creature was snow-white and had shoulder-length black hair that covered her face. It was a human girl. The girl was in a trance and her face was dull. Her eyes had lost their luster and she looked like a walking corpse. Eagle King, there are 3 more days before you have to pay tribute to young Master Shao. A guard in golden armor beside the golden-robed man reminded in a deep voice. Oh? The tribute is not ready yet? The golden-robed man frowned and his eyes flashed with coldness. He threw a pastry into the cage, and the girl immediately crouched on the ground and swallowed it. The wolf barbarian tribe in the south has said that there are no more snow spirit lotuses in their tribe. They are only short of 10. Go, lead your men and slaughter this tribe. The golden-robed man waved his hand impatiently. Originally, although the Golden Eagle barbarian tribe was a large tribe in this world, they were not the only ones in the world. However, 300 years ago, young Master Mo came and bestowed him with great fortune. After 10 years of conquest, the Golden Light Dynasty was created and he became the Eagle King. The girl in front of him was personally bestowed by young Master Mo. The Eagle King did not dare to take her as a concubine. Instead, he specially built this golden silk cage and kept her in it to let the entire demon origin world know that the Golden Eagle barbarian tribe was under the protection of the Shao clan. Who in the world would dare to disobey? At first, the girl resisted and struggled. She needed to be imprisoned by iron chains and tamed by iron whip. However, she gradually calmed down and became what she was today. Of course, whether she lost her mind or not made no difference to the Eagle Emperor. As long as she was alive, she would be able to intimidate all races. Yes. Just as the golden armored guard was about to turn around, thousands of ripples suddenly appeared in the void above his head. Then, a figure descended from the sky and landed on the temple. The Eagle Emperor's eyes narrowed as he raised his head to look at the ripples in the air. A hint of surprise flashed in his heart. He was actually a noble from the upper realm. Could it be that this person was sent by young Master Moe to collect the tribute? Are you from the Shao clan? The Eagle Sovereign hurriedly put down the jade bowl in his hand and bowed towards the stout figure with a cold expression. Subordinate Eagle Dehen greets the noble. At this moment, Shao Bo's gaze was not on the Eagle Emperor at all. Instead, he was staring fixedly at the young girl in the cage, and his eyes were already glistening with tears. How could he not see that Shao Yuer's eyes had long since dimmed and were lifeless? It was hard to imagine what kind of torture she had endured all these years. Eagle Dehen's expression turned cold. He raised his head and saw that the young man had already walked to the side of the cage. He held the cage with both hands, but no matter how hard he tried, he was unable to shake the cage in the slightest. Shao Bo took a deep breath, his expression extremely gentle. It's me. Big brother is back. Brother. Shao Yuer's eyes flickered with a strange light, but it dimmed in the blink of an eye. She continued to eat the pastry that had long been crushed. Seeing this scene, Shao Bo suddenly lowered his head, his entire body trembling. He seemed to be crying, but also seemed to be suppressing his laughter. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, Shao Moi. Shao Moi, you deserve to die. How dare you curse young Master Shao? Who exactly are you? A trace of doubt suddenly appeared on the face of the originally respectful Eagle Dehen. Sister? Could it be that this fatty is this canary's brother? All of you deserve to die. Shao Bo's entire body trembled, and even his eyes were scarlet red. Then, before Eagle Dehen could react, he felt the entire space suddenly freeze for a moment. Then, the young man's figure suddenly appeared in front of him. His entire body bloomed with spirit radiance as he pressed his palm towards his chest. You reckless thing, you actually dare to attack my emperor. I'll cripple you with 2 punches. Beside Eagle Dehen, the golden armored guard was also stunned for a moment. He then took a step forward and appeared in front of Shao Bo. Then, he directly smashed the latter's figure several hundred meters away with 2 punches. Poochie! Blood immediately spurted out of Shao Bo's mouth. His figure fell down and his eyes were filled with tears. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. It's all my fault for not being able to protect you. Boom! In the distant horizon, countless golden lights suddenly bloomed. Numerous figures with strong auras rushed over from various parts of the divine palace and surrounded Shao Bo's figure. However, at this moment, there was not a trace of panic on the young man's face. He only stared fixedly at the young girl in the cage with a sorrowful expression and desolate eyes. Humph! Little bastard, how dare you curse young Master Moe? Men, refine another golden cage for me. I want to imprison him here as a warning to the world. Eagle Dehen sneered. A mere emperor god dared to act presumptuously in his golden light divine dynasty. However, after all, this person was a member of the Shao clan. It was not up to him to decide whether he lived or died. If he captured him and handed him over to young Master Moe, perhaps it would be another great fortune. Boom! However, just as the dozens of golden armored guards stepped forward and were about to capture Shao Popper, the entire divine palace suddenly fell into darkness. It's going to rain. Eagle Dehen looked up blankly. He saw dark clouds gathering above his head and covering the sky. However, The clouds today were several times thicker than usual. At a glance, it was as if they were real. At the same time, countless experts from various sects and forces in the demon origin world flew into the sky and looked in the direction of the center of the world. From their point of view, they could clearly see an ancient ship that was thousands of meters long falling from the sky and stirring up the wind and clouds in the demon origin world. What is that? I don't know. It seems to be the legendary ancient spirit ship. How can there be such a divine object in the demon origin world? Is it the end of the world? Boom! The ancient ship fell from the sky. The void above the divine palace seemed to be unable to withstand such power and collapsed into countless abyssal cracks. On the other hand, the expressions of the group of Condor clan experts had changed from the initial calm to a wisp of dense shock. No, it's not a thundercloud. What is this? Buzz! In the depths of the divine palace, an extremely ancient and vigorous aura began to awaken and appeared above Eagle Dehen and the others. It was an old man with gloomy eagle eyes and a head full of white hair. His cultivation had surpassed the venerable realm and reached the half-saint realm. Even so, under the cover of the dark clouds, he could only feel endless fear and shock. Who has come to my golden light divine dynasty? Chapter 1064. Ancestor Janine. It's Ancestor Janine. Greetings, Ancestor Janine. Countless experts in the Golden Light Imperial City looked at the old figure standing in the sky in horror. Their eyes were filled with indescribable shock. Diao Janine, the ancestor of the Condor clan, was the true overlord of the demon origin world. It was said that he became an emperor god when he was 200 years old and an honorable realm when he was 700 years old. Now, he was a 9th grade honorable realm expert when he was 1,000 years old. No one in the entire demon origin world dared to compete with him. However, Ancestor Janine had long stopped caring about worldly affairs and focused on pursuing the Tao. Why did he suddenly come out of seclusion today? Could it be because of the thunderclouds in the sky? I wonder which lord has come to our demon origin world. I am Diao Janine of the Golden Light Empire. Greetings, lord. Then, a terrifying scene appeared. The Condor clan's ancestor, who had always been gloomy and overbearing, suddenly bowed to the thunderclouds in the sky and did not get up for a long time. Buzz. Right when everyone's brows were tightly knit together and their expressions were filled with bewilderment, a resonant sword howl suddenly resounded in the 9 heavens. A ray of clear light pierced through the darkness, and a shocking sword intent suddenly fell. It carried an unparalleled power that could kill thousands of enemies and fell on Diao Janine's head. How could it be, at this moment, the Condor clan's ancestor, who had lived for thousands of years, suddenly changed his expression? However, just as he was about to release his spiritual brilliance and resist the attack, he saw countless strange phenomena appear in the sky where the sword light passed. Time stopped and the heavenly Tao no longer existed. What he saw was only a sword was left in the world. It could kill immortals and Buddhas and demons. Even with Diao Janine's strength, he felt infinitely small at this moment. It was as if he would enter the cycle of reincarnation after the sword fell and his Tao would disappear forever. Karma was severed and everything was empty. Everything in the past was just an illusion. Death had become a kind of release. The spiritual brilliance on Diao Janine's body dimmed in an instant. After that, everyone watched with their mouths agape as the sword radiance flashed and disappeared. Ancestor Jin Ying's figure fell from the sky without a trace of vitality left on his body. How could it be? The entire Golden Light Empire fell into a dead silence. There was nothing but fear on everyone's face. Furthermore, even the Eagle Emperor could only stare blankly at the corpse on the ground, not daring to show any signs of anger or disobedience. He could feel that the moment the sword light descended, the apocalypse had already begun. Hum! The ancient warship came to a halt as a black-robed figure walked out, soaring through the air. Beneath his feet was a sea of stars that stretched for thousands of miles. True dragons floated among the clouds, and the sun and moon were no more than 3 inches away from his eyes. Boundless immortal radiance started to rise and fall, and a myriad of rays of light illuminated the sky. That was a youth. His hair was tied up in black clothes, and his immortal appearance was exceptional. That pair of long and narrow eyes contained a trace of coldness, like the deepest abyss in the 9 heavens. When one looked into those eyes, it was not fear, but eternal damnation. Immortals? Some experts began to kneel on the ground and pray in a low voice. Following that, countless figures prostrated themselves on the ground, their bodies trembling as they sobbed softly. On the other hand, Dyedahen's mouth was agape with shock and despair written all over his face, because at this moment, he saw that the young man was holding a chain in his hand, and on the other end of the chain was an extremely familiar face. Young Master Moi! How could it be? Even though he had never been to the upper realm, he knew that the hidden Shao clan was a true ancient clan of the Azure continent. There was an existence at the peak of the human world in this clan. How could it be? The young master of the ancient clan, who was like a god in his eyes and had given him supreme dignity, was now being held by another young man like an animal? Who exactly was this young man? Master. Xiaopa closed his eyes in despair as tears streamed down his face. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. He turned to look at the young girl trapped in the golden silk spirit cage, and sighed softly. Is this the Tao you've attained? Compassion? Ling Xiao turned his head and looked deeply at Yaoguang, only to see that the Brahma Bodhisattva's face was also a little angry at this moment. The red lotus between his eyebrows bloomed with dense blood-red radiance, which was inexplicably evil. Xiao Moi, look at what you've done. Ling Xiao clenched his fist and pulled Xiao Moi's figure in front of him. Don't kill me! Don't kill me! Xiao Moi looked around blankly. The moment he saw Xiao Yu'er, his eyes widened and his face turned pale. You decide. Ling Xiao landed on the ground and waved his hand, shattering the golden silk spirit cage. A smile immediately bloomed on Xiao Po's face as he stared at Xiao Yu'er, afraid that he would scare her. Yu'er, let's go. Big Brother is here to pick you up. From now on, no one can bully you anymore. Brother. Brother, Xiao Yu'er curled up at the side of the spirit cage, her pale face filled with fear. However, in the face of Xiao Po's outstretched palm, she mustered her courage and walked towards him step by step. Until, the moment the brother and sister's palms touched, Xiao Yu'er's face revealed a silly smile. Brother! Brother, Yu'er! Xiao Pa gently pulled the young girl into his embrace, his tears flowing uncontrollably. I'm sorry. Big Brother didn't protect you well. Brother. Brother, Master. Xiao Pa shed tears and looked at Ling Xiao pitifully. I want to ask you for something, speak. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently, not surprised at all by the scene before him. After returning to the clan and seeing his sister living in a dog's kennel, the next thing he would do was destroy the world in fury. I want this royal family to pay the price. This royal family? Ling Xiao frowned lightly. According to his way of thinking, everyone in this world that had seen Xiao Yu'er being humiliated deserved death. However, since Xiao Pa was unwilling to implicate the innocent, he was unwilling to expose his demonic nature in front of Yaoguang. Thus, Ling Xiao stretched out a finger and pointed at the sky. At this moment, all the experts and vassals of the Golden Eagle barbarian race raised their heads in confusion and looked under the blue sky. In the next moment, under the thunderclouds, armored figures stepped over in an orderly manner and stood at the peak of the sky. They were densely packed like divine soldiers descending from the sky. It was silent. At this moment, Condor Da was horrified to discover that the aura of any one of the tens of thousands of figures was actually above his, the leader of the Condor race. Before descending, Ling Xiao had already learned from Xiao Moi about the limits of the heavenly Tao in this realm. He could enter the sage realm, which was why he dared to descend so brazenly. Otherwise, just the battle intent of these 10,000 demon guards would be able to easily destroy most of the Azure Sky lower realm. As far as I can see, anyone with the bloodline of the Condor race will not be spared. Ling Zhao's voice was cold and resolute. The moment he finished speaking, the 10,000 black demon guards immediately descended from the sky, transforming into a black torrent that swept towards the Golden Light Empire. In an instant, killing intent rose from all directions, wails filled the air, and a bloody mist rose for thousands of miles, turning the sky of the Golden Light Empire into a sea of blood. Xiaopa held Xiao Yuer in his arms and looked coldly at the fleeing figures in despair. His expression was indifferent, and he no longer had his usual playful appearance. "Yuer, did you see that? Those who humiliated you are all dead. In the future, no one can bully you anymore." Chapter 1065. Amit Ba. Yaoguang sighed softly. She slowly closed her eyes and senses as if she wanted to escape from the bloody scene in front of her. However, when she thought of the helplessness and fear in the eyes of the girl in the cage, she suddenly realized that it might not be a bad thing to have her Buddha's heart broken. Only then could she truly see the good and evil in this world. Although Ling Zhao's actions were too cruel, he was right. If there was no bottom line for compassion, there would only be more Xiao Yuer in this world. She would suffer all kinds of torture and live a life of loneliness. This girl was undoubtedly lucky. She had a brother who loved her, and her brother was Ling Zhao's follower. However, other people might not be so lucky. Thinking about it this way, what Ling Xiao did today was actually a good deed. Let's go. It's time for the Xiao clan to give us an explanation. Ling Xiao turned around and looked deeply at Xiao Tong. However, he saw that the chosen one suddenly knelt on the ground with red eyes. "My lord, I have no way to repay your kindness today. My lord, you can take my life for the rest of my life at any time." Hearing that, Ling Xiao waved his hand and stepped out towards the upper realm. From the beginning to the end, Xianyuan Weiyang did not say a word. Although she was also somewhat fearful, seeing Ling Zhao's coldness and dominance was completely different from the gentle young master she had seen before. However, she felt inexplicably at ease. Seeing him made her feel at ease. "My lord!" Xiao Tong clenched his teeth and tried hard not to cry out loud. He raised his head and looked at the peerless figure in black. It was engraved in his heart before he got up and chased after him. This scene eventually became Xiao Tong's only obsession for the rest of his life. Even if the epoch changed and he controlled the river of time, the only thing in his heart was still this apocalypse and that gentle and peerless figure standing in front of everyone. Unfortunately, boom, boom. The demon origin world was filled with massacres. Countless spiritual lights bloomed in the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. And this dynasty that had ruled the demon primordial world for 300 years was finally annihilated today. Not a single person was left. Even those who had submitted to this clan were unable to escape death. They were all massacred. Boundless blood qi transformed into a blood cloud that enveloped the surroundings, shocking the surroundings. But at this moment, no one dared to rashly step into the Golden Light Empire for fear of attracting unnecessary killing. It wasn't until the ancient void ship took off and quietly left that someone mustered the courage to step into the temple. However, the scene in front of him scared him out of his wit. Corpses were strewn all around the temple, and blood flowed like a sea. Regardless of whether it was the Eagle Emperor or the Golden Condor Grandmaster, they were all killed by someone. What was even more frightening was that there was no sign of struggle in the entire temple. It was as if the Golden Eagle clan was willing to be slaughtered. At this time, the treasure pavilion of the Divine Palace had also been cleaned out. Even the Qiankuan bags on the bodies of the Golden Condor Patriarch and the others had disappeared without a trace. Inexplicably, some people began to panic. They quietly retreated and no longer dared to take half a step into the temple. Shao Clan Hall. At this moment, at the top of the hall, an elder in a grey robe with a ruddy complexion sat on the main seat. He looked coldly at the various elders of the Shao clan below him. Shao Shan. Look at what you have done. This person was called Shao Yu. He was the fourth ancestor of the Shao clan and a seventh-grade earthly sovereign. When Ling Shao broke the protective clan array of the Shao clan, this ancestor of the Shao clan had already awakened. However, when he saw the 10,000 black demon guards, he didn't dare to show himself. He was afraid that the Ling people would misunderstand. Compared to Shao Shan and the others, Shao Yu was a sovereign who had lived for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. In his heart, he was even more in awe of the Ling people. Ancestor Shao Shan's face was filled with fear. Today, 6 supreme talents of his lineage had died at the same time. Once he was removed from his position as the clan leader, he might completely fall into dire strait. Ling people, if the young lord wants an explanation, then hand over the sacred weapon of your lineage to him. Shao Yu snorted coldly. A sacred weapon was a foundation even in the entire Shao clan. However, it was not unacceptable for the Shao clan to end this dispute. Now that Shao Moi was crippled, reality proved that this supreme talent did not have the strength to lead the entire Shao clan back to its peak. In that case, there was nothing to feel regretful about. I'm afraid a sacred weapon is not enough. However, just as Shao Shan was pondering, a cold laugh suddenly came from outside the hall. Ling Shao walked over. Beside him, Shao Moi was crawling on the ground with a terrified expression. His mind was in a mess. Shao Po, Yao Guang, and Xianyuan Weiyang followed closely behind him, and their faces carried a wisp of coldness. Especially Xianyuan Weiyang. Originally, with her personality, she would not easily show hostility to anyone. But now, looking at Shao Moi being tortured by the young master, she felt inexplicably comfortable. Master Ling Shao. In the hall, the eyes of many Shao clan experts trembled. Their faces were filled with suppressed anger and hatred. The dignified young master of the Shao clan was now being led around by Ling Shao like an animal. If such a humiliation were to spread out, the reputation of the entire Shao clan would be swept to the ground. Master Ling Shao, a sacred weapon, is already the sincerity of the Shao clan. Young master, please be magnanimous and let Moi go. Shao Yu took a deep breath and said calmly. If this is the attitude of the Shao clan, then, all right. Ling Shao nodded indifferently. Suddenly, he waved his hand and smashed it on Shao Moi's head. Immediately, blood spurted out. The pitiful young master of the Shao clan did not even have time to react before he was killed by Ling Shao. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Son of Destiny. You have obtained 3,000 luck points and 30,000 villain points. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Son of Destiny. You have obtained an additional reward, Woeful Fire Body. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Son of Destiny. You have obtained an inferior sacred weapon, Immortal Binding Chains. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Son of Destiny. You have obtained an 8th grade aura concealing talisman, can conceal one's aura for 6 hours. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Son of Destiny. You have obtained 3% of Destiny Forging points. Let's go. Ling Shao casually threw the chains in the hall and turned to walk out of the hall. You. Shao Yu's face was hideous. He gritted his teeth, but he did not dare to act rashly. With the background of the Ling people, it was impossible that Ling Shao did not have any trump cards to protect his life. Even if a heavenly sovereign wanted to kill Shao Yu, there was a high probability that the one who would die in the end would not be Ling Shao, let alone Shao Yu, an earthly sovereign. Now that Ling Shao had left in a fit of anger, the Shao clan was in big trouble. Haha, Master Ling Shao, why are you so angry? However, just as the four of them were about to walk out of the hall, a gentle laugh suddenly came from the void above them. A ripple spread out, and a white-robed, white-haired elder immediately revealed himself and appeared in front of Ling Xiao and the others. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes. Although the white-haired old man did not emit any aura at this time, the old man's aura was extremely powerful. However, the aura that was compatible with the heavens and earth was not something that an earthly sovereign could possess. It was obvious that the old man's cultivation had reached the heavenly sovereign level. Chapter 1066. Haha. Master Ling Xiao, please come in for a chat. The white-haired elder had a gentle expression, and there was no trace of resentment in his eyes. It was as if Xiao Moi's death was a well-deserved punishment. Seeing this scene, the corners of Ling Xiao's mouth immediately raised into a smile. As expected, the older one was, the more one feared death. These old men who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years would not make a big fuss over a crippled junior. In the battle between Ling Xiao and Xiao Moi, Ling Xiao had almost crushed Xiao Moi's Taoist heart. It seemed that Xiao Moi was most likely not the main character of this generation. The Xiao clan would not risk the lives of the entire clan for him. There's nothing to talk about. The young master of the Xiao clan is cruel and tyrannical. Not only did you kill your fellow clan members, you even colluded with the brute demons to humiliate the women of your clan. How despicable! Since the Xiao clan has shown me their attitude today, I hope you won't regret it. Ling Xiao's expression was calm. He did not panic because of the white-haired elder's cultivation level. The expressions of the Xiao clan's experts changed when they heard that. That was a blatant threat. If someone else had said that, they would have been smashed to pieces. However, no one in the Xiao clan dared to move. Everyone knew that Ling people had the ability to make the Xiao clan regret it. Young master, please wait. The white-haired elder sighed softly. What they said just now cannot represent the Xiao clan. I, Xiao Tingfeng, will give you my attitude. From today onwards, I will be the young master of the Xiao clan. Xiao Shan will be demoted to the lower realm, and will not be allowed to return to the clan unless summoned. Also, Master Ling Xiao, Xiao Moi humiliated your servant. He cannot escape death. How about this? As an apology, you can choose any 3 numinous treasures from the Xiao clan's treasure vault. 3. Senior, I suspect that you look down on me. You think I'm doing this for the numinous treasures? Ling Xiao frowned slightly. Before he could finish his sentence, the old man had already gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, 5. Go ahead. Ling Xiao glanced at Xiao Bo. At the end of the day, compared to the 5 numinous treasures, Ling Xiao cared more about Xiao Bo's status as young master. In that case, the foundation of this clan would fall into his hands sooner or later. Master, I do not wish to stay in the Xiao clan and become a young master. But, to Ling Xiao's surprise, Xiao Bao shook his head at this moment and refused with a firm tone. Ling Xiao's eyes turned cold. He could guess what Xiao Bo was thinking. There was no point in staying in the Xiao clan. However, I've worked so hard to set up this trap. Is it appropriate for you to reject it just like that? And my lord, I want to accompany you first and wait for her emotions to stabilize before making a decision. All right, senior. Don't worry, as long as despicable Xiao doesn't die, the position of young lord of the Xiao clan will be his. The white-haired old man nodded, but the words that came out of his mouth were somewhat strange. Master Ling Xiao. This way, Xiao clan's treasure vault has countless cultivation methods, elixir pills, and numinous treasures. Young master, you can choose any 5 of them today. In the end, Ling Xiao and the others arrived at an ancient stone hall in the depths of the Xiao clan's spirit mountain under the guidance of the white-haired old man. Before they even got close, they could feel an extremely terrifying fluctuation of spiritual aura. This time, Ling Xiao did not hesitate. He walked into the hall and chose 3 sacred weapons, a classic, and an 8th grade elixir pill. Ancestor Tingfeng, please wait. If there's nothing else, we'll return to the Ling people first. In the void above the spirit mountain, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back at the bow of the ancient ship with a warm smile on his face. Young master, take care. Come back often when you're free. On the other hand, the two ancestors of the Shao clan and the group of Saint Stage experts revealed sorrowful expressions as they bid farewell. When the ancient ship turned into a stream of light and left, the smile on Xiao Tingfeng's face froze bit by bit. Master Ling Xiao, take care. Our Shao clan. Beside him, a Saint Realm elder was still immersed in the atmosphere when he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. He was sent flying a few hundred feet away. Ancestor. Xiao Yu's eyes were gloomy as he looked at Xiao Tingfeng with an ashen expression. Should we secretly talk to those factions that are dissatisfied with the Ling people? Today's matter was a great humiliation to the Shao clan. Not only had their young master, Xiao Moi, been killed in public, but the Shao clan had also taken out 3 sacred weapons, a classic and an elixir pill to settle the matter. With the Shao clan's strength, they did not dare to make the Ling people their enemy. However, if they secretly joined forces with the other ancient clans and immortal sects, they might be able to plot something. For example, the Longevity Shi family. Do you know who the 2 women beside the young master of the Ling people were? Xiao Tingfeng's eyes were cold as he looked up at the ancient ship disappearing into the horizon. Chaotic times had arrived. Originally, he thought that this chaotic time would definitely be brilliant and diverse, with monstrous geniuses appearing everywhere. However, he did not expect that Ling Xiao would suppress them as soon as it began. The white-haired female monk should be Yaoguang from the Brahma Holy Land. As for the girl in white, I don't know. Xiao Yu shook his head slightly and frowned. He clearly did not understand why the ancestor would ask about the 2 women's origins. The other girl is from the Xian Yuan clan. Furthermore, the sacred blood of the human emperor flows in her body. She is most likely the current princess. Xiao Tingfeng sighed softly, while Xiao Yu's expression froze. The princess of the Xian Yuan clan? I also heard that Gu Chaoxiai, one of the current sequences, is Ling Zhao's fiancé. The young master of the Foliaceae, Yi Qinchan, is actually willing to be his maidservant. How do you think the Shao clan and the Shi family can contend with these factions? Xiao Tingfeng's expression gradually calmed down. As he blinked, an aura of vicissitudes circulated. Today, the person standing in the ancestral hall of the Shao clan was the young master of the Taigu Ling people. However, in just a few months, this young master already had the shadows of the Brahma Holy Land, the Xianyuan Imperial Clan, the Immortal Phoenix Ancient Dynasty, and the Foliaceae behind him. With the Shao clan's foundation, the Immortal Phoenix Ancient Dynasty and the Foliaceae did not need to fear them. However, the Ling people, the Buddhist land, and the Xianyuan Imperial Clan all had the power to destroy the Shao clan. Then, ancestor, you mean? I think that Ling Zhao's immortal aura is natural. Now that he has so many monsters following him, the main characters of this chaotic era are most likely him and Shuexian of the Realm Lord Palace. However, I think that Ling Xiao is more likely. Ancestor, you mean? Over the past 100,000 years, although the Shao clan has accumulated some foundation, our luck has decreased instead of increasing. If only one person in the Azure world can become an immortal and suppress an era, it will most likely be Ling Xiao. Although Shuexian is talented and has the immortal devil ancient bell, the Realm Lord Palace is already the highest. His Tao is already the end. However, Ling Xiao is different. He rose from nowhere and shocked the 9 heavens. If the Shao clan wants to return to the top of the world and break free from the shackles of the immortal Tao, it is not impossible to follow Ling Xiao. Xiao Tingfeng's gaze was distant. There seemed to be a glint in the depths of his eyes. Chapter 1067. Follow Ling Xiao? Ancestor, aren't you overestimating this young man too much? Xiao Yu's eyes widened. He could tell that Ling Xiao was very strong and had the ability to crush a generation. But now, the karmic luck of heaven and earth was in the hands of immortals and not humans. Even if Ling Xiao was talented, could it be that he could break the shackles of the mortal world and ascend to the immortal world? Even if he could ascend to the immortal world, hundreds of thousands of years had passed. There was probably no place for the human race there. Righteous and decisive. The last person in the human race who had such an emperor was the human emperor of Xianyuan. He sealed the heavens with his sacred blood and killed immortals. Why can't he do that? Not to mention that he has the Xianyuan princess following him now. No one knows how far they can go after thousands of years. Xiao Tingfeng sighed deeply. Fortunately, Xiao Popper was an opportunity. If the Xiao clan wanted to follow Ling Xiao, it was not impossible. Next, they only needed to make Xiao Popper the young master and take sole control of the Xiao clan. Then, the Xiao clan and the Ling people would be completely tied together. The world was re-established, and the Xiao clan would prosper. On the other side, Ling Xiao sat upright in the ancient ship. In front of him, Xiao Popper looked at Xiao Yu'er with red eyes. Master, your methods are extraordinary. Yu'er's soul is injured. I wonder if there is a chance to recover? She should have suffered a great shock that caused her mind to be in a mess. I'm afraid medicinal pills are useless. She can only recover slowly. Ling Xiao shook his head and sighed. How about this? I'll find a place for her to recuperate in peace. It's said that the Ghost Clan is proficient in the art of the soul. When I meet a great figure of the Ghost Clan in the future, perhaps I can ask about it. Thank you, Master. Xiao Popper knelt on the ground with a sincere expression. If Xiao Popper had submitted to Ling Xiao because he cherished his life, then at this moment, he had already placed his life in Ling Xiao's hands. Even if he died, he would not regret it. There's no need to be so courteous. The path to immortality is dangerous. It's better to cultivate diligently in order to protect the peace of the world. Ling Xiao looked at Yao Guang meaningfully, only to see that the latter's pretty face was slightly frozen, as if he was thinking about something. However, compared to before, the red lotus between her eyebrows seemed to have become even more beautiful. Buzz. At this moment, a buzzing sound came from Ling Xiao's Sea of Soul. Master. Chen Qingshan's voice rang out from the voice transmission talisman. With a thought, Ling Xiao immediately disappeared. In the past few days, according to your instructions, I have secretly investigated the origins and plans of the Gone Heaven Divine Sect. Yes. The Gone Tian Divine Sect is recruiting disciples. They are collecting blood spirits under the name of the Sky Demon. They seem to be raising a holy infant. The holy infant's chi is not very strong. He is only in the venerable realm, but he can use the art of Pluto to control people's minds. That sect leader Gone Tian was summoned by him and ascended. He has already entered the saint realm. Also, as far as I know, this holy infant has been looking for something called the Sky Netherworld Plate. Other than that, does the Gone Heaven Divine Sect have any other experts? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows. Controlling people's minds with a cultivation method? No matter how he heard it, it was the work of an evil demon. Holy Infant? Did you hear that name? Could he be a human? However, even if the Holy Infant's cultivation method was strange, he could use the power of the Sky Demon to strengthen himself. He was quite clever. Of course, in the eyes of the human race, killing demons was enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Similarly, in the eyes of demons, humans were meat to begin with. Eating them was not a sin. This world was vast and endless. All living things existed together. Righteousness and evil were just different standpoints and identities. There are also a few commanders. They are all in the first or second rank of the saint realm. Sect leader Gone Tian said that after collecting the blood spirits, the disciples will be rewarded with cultivation methods. According to my estimation, the holy infant's blood sacrifice should be coming to an end. Oh? How long will it take to collect the blood spirits? 1 month. The sooner, the better. I understand. Ling Xiao nodded calmly, but his eyes flashed with evil. The Gone Heaven Divine sect used the Sky Demon as an excuse to create chaos in the human world. It was really infuriating. In that case, when the holy infant finished collecting the blood spirits and prepared everything, he would harvest it. Would that not be enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens? When harvesting leeks, of course, he had to wait for them to mature. However, he did not know what kind of secret was behind the holy infant. Sky-een underworld disc? That sounded like an evil demon's treasure. A day passed in the blink of an eye. Strangely, the news of the Shao clan's young master being killed did not spread in the Azure world. Thinking about it, this was not a glorious matter for the Shao clan. Moreover, the Shao clan's heavenly sovereign's intention was to get along with Ling Xiao peacefully. In that case, when he calmed down, it was time for him to return to the clan and become Ling Xiao's assistant. However, although the Shao clan was embarrassed, Ling Xiao wanted to show his righteousness. Did he think that if he did not say anything, no one would know about it? By Ling, send a few secret guards to various places in the Azure world. That means, at the same time. Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb, at the peak of the Sword Mountain. Ling Tian was dressed in a blood-red robe, and the celestial eradication sword in his hand shone with a cold light. In front of him, blood seemed to be dripping from the corner of Jun Moa's mouth, and her beautiful eyes flashed with hatred. I'm not coming anymore. Junior brother Ling Tian really has a heart of stone. Must you beat senior sister until she vomits blood every time? This, Ling Tian kept his sword and scratched his head. Didn't senior sister say that I have to go all out and not show mercy? Humph, what a blockhead. How did Yi Sun fall for you? Jun Mo glared at Ling Tian fiercely. However, the moment she finished speaking, a loud buzzing sound came from the depths of the sword tomb, following which a ray of light suddenly bloomed and shot into the sky. Faintly, there seemed to be a divine palace at the end of the light. It was golden and dazzling, eternal and immortal. What is this? Ling Tian and Jun Mo were surprised. The two of them had not been in the sword tomb for long, and they had been comprehending the sword intent in the back of the mountain. Occasionally, they would spar with each other. From Jun Mo's body, Ling Tian could feel a strong sense of resentment. However, with his temperament, he would not meddle in other people's business. On the other hand, Jun Mo would sometimes tell him some of her childhood experiences. After a while, the two of them realized that regardless of their background or experiences, they had many similarities. They agreed that when they were successful in their cultivation in the future, they would run amok in the Azure world and eliminate all injustice. All disciples of the Sword Tomb, come to the Sword Tomb at the back of the mountain. The voice of the Sword Master of the Dragon Abyss Sword resounded in the sky. Above the Sword Mountain, streams of light suddenly appeared and flew towards the back of the mountain. Ling Tian and Jun Mo looked at each other, and without hesitation, they left in a flash. After the two of them left, a beautiful figure in yellow walked out of the ancient forest in the distance. She looked calmly at the two of them who left side by side. Although Yi Sun had entered the Sword Tomb, she was unable to become a disciple of the Sword Master. She only followed the disciples of the Sword Tomb to practice the heart of a sword cultivator, and it was difficult for her to meet Ling Tian. Junior brother Ling Tian, in the end, I can't keep up with your footsteps. Yi Sun smiled indifferently, and a trace of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Boom, boom, boom. In the depths of the Sword Tomb, there were thousands of rays of light and 3,000 sword intents. One by one, figures descended from the sky and landed in front of an ancient tomb. The Sword Master of the Dragon Abyss Sword stood with his hands behind his back, and his eyes were deep as he looked at the tombstone in front of him that was emitting divine light. Beside him was a tall and straight young man dressed in gray and white cloth. He stood there like an unsheathed sword, emitting a piercingly cold aura that made one's heart palpitate. Chapter 1068. I didn't expect little senior brother Xiang Tian to come out of seclusion as well. Little senior brother's sword aura is getting more and more terrifying. That goes without saying. Little senior brother Xiang Tian is the most talented person in the Sword Tomb and one of the 10 sequences in the Azure Sky. He's going to become the Azure Sky Sword Celestial in the future. There weren't many disciples in the Sword Tomb. Including Ling Tian and Jun Mo, there were only about 30 people. Now that the immortal world had appeared, everyone had already gathered in front of the Sword Tomb. This ancient tomb was rumored to be the place where the 9 Heavens Sword Celestial was buried. However, the sword intent inside was so sharp that even with the Sword Master's cultivation, it was difficult for him to enter the tomb. He had never seen the Celestial's remains before. At this moment, there was a divine stele in front of the tomb. There were countless sword marks on it, emitting endless Taoist rhymes. Since everyone is here, let's begin. The Sword Master of the Dragon Abyss Sword turned around and looked at Ling Tian and Jun Mo. According to my guess, this sword stele was carved by the Sword Celestial before he died. The scriptures on it are complicated and profound. It's not written in the Azure Sky language. It should be written in the Celestial Domain or ancient scriptures. However, even if you don't understand the scriptures, you can still cultivate by observing the sword intent on it. It's actually left behind by the Sword Celestial. Jun Mo covered her mouth with her hand. When she turned around again, she saw Ling Tian frowning as if he was in deep thought. Junior brother Ling Tian? Senior sister, what did you say? Ling Tian's expression turned serious as he looked at Jun Mo blankly. Nothing, junior brother. Don't tell me you understand the scriptures on the stele? Jun Mo raised her eyebrows slightly. However, Ling Tian shook his head and sat down without saying anything else. At this moment, he could feel the terrifying heat coming from the celestial extermination sword. It was as if the scriptures on the stele were somehow related to the sword. Suddenly, Ling Tian seemed to have thought of something. It was said that this ancient sword had once killed a celestial and had a strand of celestial karma. It was just that these rumors were mostly exaggerated and not baseless. Could it be that the celestial extermination sword was really tainted by the celestial's blood and was nourished by the sword celestial's blood for tens of thousands of years? Then, who was it that killed the celestial? Accompanied by a buzzing sound, a drop of golden blood appeared in Ling Tian's soul sea. Immediately after, an ancient and vast aura began to awaken from the blood. In a short period of time, that drop of blood had evolved into tens of thousands of divine elephants. It was as if an era had repeated itself, and 800 million years of time had passed in a hurry. At the end of the epoch, there was a white-robed immortal figure. He held an ancient sword and looked up at the sky. Boom! The divine stele of the ancient tomb suddenly emitted a blinding golden light. Its impetus directly caused the thunderclouds in an area of 5,000 kilometers in the sky to surge while violent gales arose abruptly. Lightning dragon great devils were hidden in the darkness. From time to time, they would stretch out their legs, intimidating everyone. Night fell in the sword mound. Apart from the ancient talismans that seemed to be alive, there was not a single trace of light in the world. The Sword Master of the Dragon Abyss Sword had a serious expression as he turned around to look at the disciples behind him. He noticed that besides Xiang Tian, Ling Tian, Jun Mo Wu, and Wu Nian, the other disciples had their eyes wide open. They were obviously shocked by the scene before them. Could it be that one of the 4 of them has comprehended the scriptures in the stele? The Sword Master of the Dragon Abyss Sword's eyes trembled slightly. Not only was there not a trace of excitement in his heart, there was an inexplicable fear instead. This was not the first time this phenomenon had occurred in the ancient tomb. However, neither he nor Xiang Tian had comprehended the ancient words within. In other words, it was very likely that Ling Tian or Jun Mo Wu could cause such a divine elephant to descend from the sky. Both of them had devil intent in their sword hearts. Once they obtained the sword immortal's inheritance, it would be a calamity or fate for Qingtsang. However, all the laws of the world followed karma. Now that he had accepted Ling Tian and Jun Mo Wu as his disciples, he was not willing to be someone who obstructed their path. Perhaps this chaotic world should be filled with bloodshed, and the immortals would be killed. All living things in the world had their own fate. With a single thought there would be 3,000 karma. There was no way to determine one's own fate. Sigh. The sword master of the dragon abyss sword sighed softly. His originally tall and straight figure was inexplicably hunched. At this moment, he realized that his originally flawless sword heart was actually tied to this sex inheritance. Buzz! At this moment, Ling Tian's soul consciousness had already been absorbed by that drop of golden blood. He seemed to have seen a young man who started from nothing and used his unparalleled sword to prove his Tao. Under his sword, all immortals, gods, Buddhas, and demons were killed. Blood flowed for thousands of miles, and he was invincible. The white-robed man held a sword and a cup in his hand. He frowned and spoke with a thunderous voice. The immortals and demons of the 9 heavens were at ease, and the young man returned with a slash of his sword. Ling Tian's eyes trembled as he looked at the figure at the end of the long river. He watched as the ancient sword in his hand slashed down, destroying the era and suppressing 3,000 immortals and demons. Then, he slowly walked over from the end of reincarnation. At first, he was a young man with clear eyebrows and a calm smile. With one step, he turned into a white robe. His ancient sword slashed the sky, raising a bloody light. The young man raised his head and looked at the sky. There seemed to be a sword immortal bowing his head with a gratified smile. In my life, I was invincible. In order to seek the peak of the sword path, I turned into an immortal and a mortal. Mortals experienced thousands of tribulations, broke through the heavens, and cultivated the 9 styles of heaven punishing. Above, they killed immortals and gods, and below, they killed all living things in order to seek the devil heart. The immortals stood high in the 9 heavens, condensed a sea of stars, forged 3,000 sword bones, and broke the ancient river. The day the mortal sword heart was forged, above the heavens, fought with the immortal body, and died together to prove the Tao of invincibility. The one who obtained my opportunity covered my immortal path, experienced the mortal world, and stood at the peak of the 9 heavens. Immortals and Buddhas couldn't stop me. Thunder rumbled, and Ling Tian's eyes suddenly widened. At this moment, he finally understood that the white-robed young man and the sword immortal were actually the same person, splitting into 2 bodies. Invincibility was so lonely. It was so lonely that killing oneself to prove the Tao. At the same time, an ancient scripture suddenly appeared in Ling Tian's mind. 3,000 sword bones. Boom, boom. Boundless blood energy began to fluctuate. Outside Ling Tian's body, the laws of the great Tao interweaved into chains, forming a universe of their own. At this moment, he could feel that the bones in his body seemed to be bathed in this scripture, erupting with an indescribable divine power that was invincible and indestructible. 3 feet in front of him, invincible in the world. At this moment, the entire azure world was covered in dark clouds, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. It was like the end of the world, but also like the beginning of reincarnation, and in the depths of the ancient tomb, a wisp of immortal opportunity awakened, letting out a deafening roar, as if summoning the fated one to go and experience the Tao. Thousands of miles away, Ling Xiao sat cross-legged on the ancient ship, his brows slightly raised. At this moment, He could feel that the providence value in the system was rising rapidly at a terrifying speed. It was obvious that in the providence that submitted to him, someone had obtained a great opportunity. Who could it be? In Ling Zhao's mind, the figures of Ling Tian, Chen Qingshan, and Meng Yuan alternated. However, no matter who it was, according to the providence that he obtained, there was probably going to be a peerless monster in the Azure world that would shock all races. Boom! The ancient ship descended horizontally, descending from the divine battlefield. Ling Xiao, Xiao Ku, and the others walked out one after another, landing on the peak of the divine mountain. At this moment, he could see that at the foot of the divine mountain, a beautiful figure in feathered clothes was kneeling on the ground. Her eyes were filled with sincerity, and she didn't dare to move at all. Chapter 1069. Go back to the temple first. Ling Xiao said indifferently as he walked down the mountain. From the looks of it, Jin Han was determined to follow him. As long as he could solve the crisis facing the Golden Crow divine dynasty, this arrogant Golden Crow princess would submit to him. You are Jin Han? When Ling Xiao appeared in front of Jin Han, she was still respectfully prostrating herself on the ground, not daring to move at all. Hearing the voice, Jin Han looked up blankly. Sunlight shone on Ling Xiao from above, emitting a dazzling golden radiance, making him look like an immortal god. When they first met, they did not know the meaning of the rumors. When they met again, it was already a dream. Jin Han-er's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as a charming smile bloomed on her beautiful face. Young master, my daughter, Jin Han admires young master's righteousness. I hope young master can accept me as your servant. Finally, young master finally showed up. As expected, hard work pays off. Righteousness? Oh, I thought you admired my appearance. The thing you want is no longer with me. Go back. After saying that, Ling Xiao turned around and walked toward the mountain peak. The smile on Jin Han-er's face froze before it disappeared. However, just as she stood up and was about to chase after Ling Xiao, a figure descended from the sky and blocked her path. It was the reckless Devil King. Looking at the 10-foot-tall devil figure that exuded a ferocious aura, Jin Han-er's eyes were filled with sorrow. She bit her red lips as tears streamed down her cheeks silently. Is there really no other way? Is the Golden Crow divine dynasty really going to decline? Although Lord Ling Xiao did not deliberately humiliate her because of her previous rudeness, in the end, the divine dynasty's fortune had come to an end. Her path of cultivation was about to be turned upside down. Am I really going to marry that little turtle from the Black Tortoise divine dynasty? Jin Han looked at the tall and straight black-clad figure on the mountain peak from afar. She watched as he exuded a celestial aura with every step he took. Even though it was just his back, it was enough to make the world lose its color and the mountain wind linger. Haha, Jin Han, where did your pride go? In the end, Jin Han walked out of the god battle domain with a desolate look on her face. At this moment, she realized that there was no place for her to stand in this vast expanse of mountains and rivers. She wasn't even worthy of being a servant girl. Where did she get the confidence to strut around in front of him in the past? Mother, ancestor, Han is useless. Beep. The destined woman's Tao heart is unstable and she is doubting herself. Congratulations to host for plundering 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. On the peak of the mountain, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. Looking at the figure that was staggering away, the corners of his mouth immediately raised into a gentle smile. Humans, only in the most desperate times would they be unswervingly loyal. Young master! Above the void, demonic clouds suddenly trembled. Immediately after, the mystic butterfly's figure descended from the sky and appeared beside Ling Xiao. Let me see if you're injured. Before Ling Xiao could react, the bewitching butterfly's jade-like hand had already touched his chest, and an intoxicated expression appeared on her face. Ancestor bewitching butterfly. Ling Xiao frowned slightly, and his tone was extremely cold. The bewitching butterfly immediately smiled embarrassedly and respectfully took 2 steps back. Her expression had already returned to normal. My lord, I have already heard from the Black Demon Guards that the Shao clan is acting recklessly. How dare they imprison your servant? Ling Yuanxing and I will personally go to the Shao clan and ask them to exterminate their clan as atonement. There's no need for that. Ling Xiao shook his head slightly and looked deeply at the bewitching butterfly. You don't have to interfere with my matters. When I need Ling people, there will naturally be a chance for you to sacrifice yourselves. Yes. Seeing the demonic intent flickering in Ling Xiao's eyes, even the bewitching butterfly's delicate body trembled. At this moment, she finally saw the sky demon who once stood in the 9 heavens and looked down on all living beings. How is Hua and Baijishi's cultivation? My lord. Young lord, the 2 girls' talents are 1 in a million. They each comprehended the most profound Tao law in the world. Now they are in seclusion and are preparing to break through to the revered realm. The bewitching butterfly's expression became serious. Originally, she had accepted Hua and Baijishi as her disciples purely to keep them away from her lord. However, after interacting with them for a period of time, she discovered that the bloodlines of the 2 were extremely terrifying. The 9-tailed fox was originally a great demon of the primitive era. She could move unhindered in the world and bewitch all living beings. Although Baijishi's bloodline could not be considered pure, this girl had comprehended the space Tao law. It could be said to be the most profound of the 3,000 Tao laws. Moreover, this Tao law was more terrifying the higher one's cultivation was. He could travel thousands of miles in an instant. Wherever his thoughts and body went, it was a supreme weapon, whether it was to protect his life or to kill his enemies. As for Hua, just her bloodline alone made the Sky Demon Palace's demon lord, bewitching butterfly's heart palpitate. The ancestral dragon's bloodline, the devouring Tao law. Even the bewitching butterfly had never seen the real ancestor dragon. However, she inexplicably felt a supreme demonic might that could truly soar to the 9 heavens and stand above thousands of demons from Huahua's body. The devouring Tao law could devour heaven and earth when cultivated to the extreme. Just where did his lord find such terrifying evildoers, and each one of them was so loyal? Suddenly, the bewitching butterfly recalled the scene hundreds of thousands of years ago when she first met the Sky Demon Lord. At that time, she was young and delicate. Her heart was filled with expectations. However, because she took an extra look at him, she fell into the wrong path and had yet to wake up. Have they reached the revered realm? Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. Indeed, with the temperament of these 2 girls, they only knew how to eat, drink, and play with him all day long. In the end, they lacked a restraint. What do you know about the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty? Ling Xiao suddenly turned his head and looked at the bewitching butterfly. In an instant, the bewitching butterfly's pretty face froze. Her red lips were tightly pursed as she felt inexplicably nervous. The Golden Crow Divine Dynasty? Young lord, it is said that this dynasty is cursed by the immortals. Those who trespass will die. Not only the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, but also the other 3 divine dynasties. Those who trespass will die. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Interesting. The more mysterious a place is, the more shocking the secret it hides. This is the principle of cultivation. Do you believe it? Of course, the bewitching butterfly doesn't believe it. The rumors in this world are often exaggerated. However, it is said that some immortals have fallen in this dynasty. Young lord, are you planning to? I'm going to the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty. Ling Zhao's heart moved. He left behind the pure Tao body and turned into a swan as he flew away. The figure of a golden dragon suddenly appeared under his feet. It soared into the sky and disappeared into the horizon. The bewitching butterfly's eyes trembled slightly. In the end, she did not dare to stop him. The sky demon, the ninth heaven's dark pole. What curse could threaten his life? At this time, whether it was Xianyuan Weiyang or Yaoguang, they had both entered seclusion to calm their hearts. The scene in the Shao clan could be said to have affected the two girls greatly. Especially Xiao Yuer's encounter, it made the originally timid Xianyuan Weiyang and the compassionate Yaoguang see the true darkness of the immortal path. Perhaps Ling Xiao was right. There was no true good or evil in this world. Everything had two sides. The pinnacle of light was always the purest darkness. Although the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty could not be considered the top in the Azure world, this dynasty's legacy could be traced back to hundreds of thousands of years ago. It was rumored that the Golden Crow, Ancient Qilin, Flame Dragon, and Black Tortoise dynasties were descendants of the immortals who followed the orders of their ancestors to protect the Azure world. The royal family of the four dynasties all had bloodlines that were different from both the human race and the demon race. At this time, in the sky above the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, the figure of a golden dragon suddenly pierced through the clouds and descended from the sky, causing endless avatars. Immortal clouds fell, and divine light filled the sky. The order of the great Tao meandered, and formed a chain that spread thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. Among the thousands of divine elephants, a black-robed figure slowly walked over and landed in front of the Golden Crow Imperial Palace. "Who are you?" The Golden Crow Imperial Emperor Jin Yen was dressed in a golden robe. She took a step forward, and her sage aura surged. Her mature and charming face had a solemn expression that had never been seen before. Around the imperial palace, countless golden-armored guards were shocked. They held their divine halberds and glared at the young man's figure. For 100,000 years, no one had dared to come to the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty in such a flamboyant manner, except for the Realm Lord back then. This young man. Where did he come from? Chapter 1070. Ling People, Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao didn't waste any time. He looked up at Jin Yen, only to see the latter's beautiful eyes narrowed, and a hint of excitement appeared on her face. "So it's the young master of the Ling People. I'm Jin Yen, the Golden Crow Emperor." Even though Jin Yen was an emperor, she still felt her heart skip a beat when she saw the calm and gentle face in front of her. No wonder the arrogant Han was willing to be the servant of the young master of the Ling People. Although Jin Yen had tried her best to persuade Jin Han that day, she knew her daughter's temperament very well. If she was unwilling from the bottom of her heart, she wouldn't kneel down and become someone's servant even if the Golden Crow dynasty was destroyed. One had to know that although the legacies of the four divine dynasties were similar, there were differences in their foundations over the past hundreds of thousands of years. The Flaming Dragon Dynasty and the Black Tortoise Dynasty were good at killing and defense, and there were endless geniuses in the dynasty. The strength of the two dynasties had long surpassed that of the ancient Qilin Dynasty and the Golden Crow Dynasty. If it weren't for the fact that they restrained each other, there probably wouldn't be the four divine dynasties now. The Black Tortoise Crown Prince had always admired Jin Han but he still couldn't find her after chasing her for 100 years. If this girl really only cared about the safety of the Golden Crow dynasty, marrying the Black Tortoise Crown Prince might be a shortcut. But in the end, she didn't want to be the crown princess of the divine dynasty and ran off to be someone's servant? The Taigu Ling people were indeed powerful and unique. However, if it weren't for Ling Zhao's peerless appearance, Han would definitely not be willing to accept her fate. It was supposed to be used to describe a woman. However, when Jin Yen saw the young master of the Ling people, she also felt that he was so perfect that it was almost unreal. "Let's talk inside." Ling Xiao lifted his foot and walked toward the large palace in front of him. Although he didn't emit a trace of aura, just his back view made Jin Yen, a sage, feel inexplicably fearful. He had an indifferent calmness that said he wouldn't be destroyed even if heaven and earth were to be destroyed. He was an immortal, suppressing the world. The Emperor's aura had already manifested, and the human sovereign was present. Although this kind of opportunity was something that never existed in the world, Jin Yan had already made her decision the moment she saw Ling Xiao. The entire Golden Crow Imperial Palace was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. All the experts of the Divine Dynasty looked at the Golden Crow Emperor, who was bowing with fear on his face, with shock in their eyes. That's right. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty was indeed weaker than the Shenwu Dynasty. However, it was not by luck that this Divine Dynasty and the other 3 Divine Dynasties had been able to stand tall in the Azure for 100,000 years. Everyone in the Azure firmament knew that it was the treasure that protected the 4 dynasties. How could they not be greedy? However, it was rumored that the treasure suppressed by the 4 dynasties was the most evil of the 9 heavens. Not to mention utmost exalted experts, even martial emperors were unable to control it. Back when the celestial race ruled the 9 heavens, there were celestial race members who descended to search for the supreme treasure of this world. In the end, they unexpectedly disappeared without a trace. It was said that the place where he disappeared was the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. However, with the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty's strength, it was impossible for them to harm the most powerful celestial race member. Thus, it could be seen that it was probably because of the evil treasure suppressed by this dynasty. Later on, the Realm Lord held the celestial demon Ancient Bell and dominated this world. However, when he descended to the 4 great divine dynasties, he seemed to have sensed something and set an iron rule that no one was to attack the 4 dynasties. Those who violated this rule would be killed without mercy. The 4 great divine dynasties became the taboo of the Azure overnight. No one dared to covet their treasures anymore. It was not that Ling Xiao did not believe this rumor. However, the more dangerous a place was, the more terrifying the creation would be. The treasure suppressed by the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty was just short of being a heaven-defying supreme treasure. If he did not come, how could he live up to his reputation as a righteous man? What? You think I'm coveting the treasure of the 4 dynasties? F***ck. You've been chasing me for so long. Don't you know what I, Ling Xiao, am like? I'm obviously trying to help the 4 great god dynasties break free from their shackles and get rid of this threat to all living beings in the Azure continent. I'm trying to make the word taboo vanish into thin air. A scapegoat puppet, a realm, a sky supreme corpse puppet, 2 incarnations, and the true body of the sky demon. Ling Xiao did not believe that there was any curse in this world that could kill him. If there is, then I will send a clone to collect the treasure. Cough, cough, all of you can leave. Jin Yan walked into the imperial palace, and looked at the young man that sat upright on the throne and all the guards and maidservants that were dumbstruck since a long time ago. She immediately coughed lightly and waved her hand to dismiss everyone. Greetings, young lord. I wonder what is the purpose of young lord's visit? Actually, at this moment, Jin Yan had already guessed Ling Xiao's intentions. Han had most likely become the young master's servant and obtained the young master's favor. Therefore, the young master should be here to deliver the good fortune. I heard that the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty is looking for the true reincarnation due. You even dare to touch my good fortune. Is the human world not worth it? Ling Xiao's eyes were calm, but the words that came out of his mouth made Jin Yan's expression change drastically. With a plop, she knelt on the ground. Young lord. The true reincarnation due was the immortal item that Han said could continue the dynasty's lifeline. Previously, she had gone to the Nihility region to look for this item. Because of this, she had offended Master Ling Xiao. Originally, Jin Yan thought, Han must have been moved by the young master and obtained this item. However, she did not expect that Ling Xiao would come to condemn her. It's over. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty is over. No wonder the young master came alone and did not see Han. Could it be, my son? You deserve to die. Cold sweat the size of beans flowed down Jean Yan's pretty face. In just a short moment, the green stone beneath her was wet. Buzz! Young lord. This matter. Jean did not know the severity of the matter. Please forgive me, young lord. Outside the main hall, the sound of rushing wind suddenly resounded. Then, the Golden Crow Patriarch, Jean Yuyang, stepped from the sky. However, he did not dare to enter the hall directly. Instead, he strode in from outside the hall and bowed to Ling Xiao. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty was protected by a divine item, but that protection was used to suppress the item, not the Golden Crows. If Ling Xiao really wanted to destroy the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty, it would be useless even if the Golden Crow Patriarch appeared today. Forgive me? Fine, if the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty is willing to be a slave, I will forgive your clan. If not. Ling Xiao's eyes were cold, and the corners of his mouth suddenly lifted into a cold smile. However, Jean Yuyang and Jean Yuyang's bodies trembled. They looked at each other and nodded silently. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty is willing to submit to the Ling people. Submitting to the Ling people was not a disgrace to the various forces in the Azure world. On the contrary, for an ancient dynasty like the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty, which did not have a strong foundation and was at the end of its road, it was not an exaggeration to say that it was a good fortune. Otherwise, once Jean Yuyang died, the Golden Crows would definitely be destroyed and devoured. There would be no way for them to survive. Not submitting to the Ling people, but submitting to me. Ling Xiao was not surprised by their reaction. If this ancient dynasty had not sealed a supreme treasure, and it was only a part of the supreme treasure, Ling Xiao would not have done anything unnecessary and directly destroyed it. Now that he controlled the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty, it was just a bait to plot against the four dynasties. Otherwise, once he destroyed the dynasty and stole the treasure, how different would he be from an evil demon? Remember, I, Ling Xiao, am the light of the righteous path. How could I kill the innocent? Submit to the young master? Hearing this, Jean Yuyang's eyes flashed with a hint of doubt. However, in her opinion, there was no difference between submitting to Ling Xiao and submitting to the Ling people. Therefore, she did not hesitate and immediately bowed. Yes, from today onwards, the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty will respect the young master. Open your soul sea. Chapter 1071. Open, my soul sea? Jean Yuyang looked at Ling Xiao and then at Jean Yen. She looked even more confused. Opening one's soul sea was either to search one's soul or to plant a soul seal and make one a slave. But no matter what, they were all done by demons. The young master of the Ling people was the leader of the Qing Tsang sect and the pride of the human race. How could he? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and a cold aura surrounded him. Jean Yuyang and Jean Yen were stunned and opened their divine souls. Immediately after, the two of them felt a warm current entering their soul seas. After that, they had a strange feeling of being controlled by someone. Since the young master of the Ling people dared to come here alone, he must be confident that he could escape unscathed. Moreover, even if he asked them to kill him, they would not dare to have any killing intent. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty had been around for hundreds of thousands of years. There were thousands of people in the imperial family. If anything happened to the young master of the Ling people, the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty would be wiped out. This branch contains vitality. It may be helpful to you. Ling Xiao threw a branch to Jean Yuyang. She took it respectfully, but there was not much expectation on her face. The end of one's lifespan was not something that could be reversed by ordinary elixirs. Moreover, it was just a branch buzz. However, just as Jean Yuyang's palm touched the branch, she froze on the spot as if she had been hit hard. This is, Patriarch? What happened to you? Jean Yen was stunned. She turned to look at the Patriarch, whose face was flushed. Her lips trembled, but she did not know what to say. Are you kidding me? Patriarch, you are a second-grade heavenly sovereign. You are one of the most powerful people in the Qing Tsang sect. Why are you so happy because of a branch? Should I say you care about the holy dynasty, or your acting skills are too good? Since you have the blood of the golden crow in your body, this Fu Sang branch should be able to help you improve your cultivation. In this way your lifespan will increase accordingly. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Jin Yan's red lips opened to an unbelievable degree. Fu Sang Divine Tree? Was he bragging? According to the ancient books of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, the Fu Sang Divine Wood could be said to be the lifeline divine item. Of course, the current monarch clan of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty only had a trace of the Golden Crow's bloodline flowing in their bodies. Even so, the propping mulberry divine tree was still a heavenly creation that only existed in legends. The extreme of life lies in Fu Sang. Compared to the current immortal clan that ruled the 9 heavens, the hidden mulberry divine tree was a connate life form that was born at the beginning of primal chaos. Its cultivation was supreme, and it grew at the end of the world. How could it be something that mortals could covet? But, looking at the patriarch's expression, he didn't seem to be faking it. So, or did the world underestimate the strength of the Ling people? The withered branch that the young master of the Ling people casually bestowed was actually the Fu Sang Divine Wood? It turns out that we have underestimated the young master's righteousness. Previously, there was a rumor that Master Ling Xiao had personally led 10,000 black demon guards into the Flaming Sun region to kill the young master of the Xiao clan and destroy a domain of barbarian demons for the sake of a servant of the god Dharch. As for the young master of the Xiao clan, it was said that he was cruel and had the body of disaster. He was born evil and raised barbarian demons to control the lower realm. Even his own clan members could not escape from his evil hands. Of course, no matter how evil he was still the young master of the Xiao clan and the most powerful person in Qing Tsang. If not for the Lord Ling Zhao's righteousness, who would dare to kill him in the Xiao clan's spirit mountain? Now, it seemed that being the young master's servant was really a creation. Haha, if Jin Yen knew that there was a Fu Sang Divine Wood in Ling Zhao's domain, she would probably be scared to death. Thank you, young master. The Golden Crow clan will repay young master's kindness with our lives. Jin Yuyang took a deep breath and suppressed the throbbing in her heart. At her age, it was impossible for her to break through again. However, just now, when she held the Fu Sang Divine Wood, she felt that her realm, which had not fluctuated for tens of thousands of years, had loosened a little. A supreme creation. It was comparable to being reborn. Go and cultivate. Ling Zhao's expression was calm. The art of controlling people was nothing more than this. Even if he had planted a soul seal in them, and there was no possibility of them betraying him, they still had their own thoughts. Only this kind of true submission from the heart could bring out the greatest benefit. The soul seal is just a precaution. When we control people, we must use character to influence them. Yes. When Jin Yuyang's figure disappeared, Ling Zhao's gaze finally landed on Jin Yen. Seeing the evil desire in the eyes of the young master of the Ling people, Jin Yan's body trembled. Does the young master have some special fetish? He doesn't like honor, but what can I do? Although it's embarrassing, he has already planted a soul seal in me. I heard that the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty has an ancient evil item sealed? Ling Xiao smiled warmly, but this caused Jin Yen to be stunned, and her face became even redder. Jin Yen, you are thinking of peaches. Master. Just call me young master. Ling Xiao shook his head. Master? This kind of title would make one's imagination run wild. Now that the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty's mission had not been completed, of course, he could not let others see any clues. Yes, young master. That evil item was passed down from my ancestors. Not only my Golden Crow clan, but the other 3 ancestors are also guarding one. Jin Yen sighed softly. She had already guessed that Ling Xiao would not come to the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty for no reason. It seemed that even the righteous master Ling Xiao could not resist the curiosity in his heart. What is it? Ling Xiao nodded slightly, but Jin Yen shook her head. As for what it is exactly, we do not know. But according to the ancient records in the clan, once this evil item appears, it might be the beginning of the end of the world. The beginning of the end of the world? Ling Xiao's lips curled into a gentle smile. An evil item that even the Realm Lord was afraid of. Could it be related to the Sky Demon? But with the temperament of the Celestial clan, if it was really the Sky Demon's item, they would definitely not leave it alone. Suddenly, Ling Xiao seemed to have thought of something, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. That's right. Young master, just the place where the evil item is sealed is not something a paragon can barge in, so… Jin Yen wanted to say something but stopped. But the deeper meaning was self-evident. Young master, you can't die in the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. Otherwise, even if the Patriarch extends his life, what's the point? Bring me to see it, Ling Xiao said indifferently. Jin Yen was about to dissuade him, but fear flashed in her eyes. She bowed and said, Yes, young master. This way please. The 2 of them walked one after another into the depths of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. Jin Yen only stopped when a golden ancient palace appeared in front of them. The moment Ling Xiao saw the ancient palace, his eyes narrowed. At this moment, he could see that the ancient palace was square like a tomb. Countless divine inscriptions covered it, intertwining into chains that wrapped around the entire palace and sealed it. Ling Xiao could feel that the divine inscriptions were filled with an extremely hot energy. It was even more terrifying than the spiritual fire in his body. It was very shocking. But strangely, under the seal, there was an extremely weak and sinister energy that flowed slowly, as if it would never be extinguished. Chapter 1072. Young Lord. This is the forbidden ground of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, the Evil Sealing Palace. The other 3 dynasties have similar palaces. They were built by the ancestors of the 4 clans. Jin Yen frowned. Apparently, she was also afraid of this ancient palace. To Ling Xiao, someone who could make the ancestors of the 4 clans submit to him must be an extremely terrifying existence. But why did he leave the seal in the mortal realm? It was getting more and more interesting. I know. Open it. Ling Xiao nodded. The seal outside the ancient palace obviously contained a wisp of true fire power. It was very similar to the bloodline power of the Golden Crow Dharch race. To Ling Xiao, the seal of this ancient palace must be opened by the Golden Crow race. It was probably the same for the other 3 evil sealing palaces. Since he was so cautious, it seemed that the item in this palace really had some background. However, if the item in this palace could make the Realm Lord wary, why didn't he directly kill the 4 clans and completely seal the 4 palaces? Young Lord, the seal of this palace must be stabilized by the bloodline of the Golden Crow Dharch race, but to break it… Jin Yan's expression was ugly, but Ling Xiao's brows showed a hint of understanding. What's wrong? It needs the blood of the Dharch race. By then, the cultivation level will definitely… Jin Yan's eyes trembled, but Ling Xiao shook his head. I will take care of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty. You can go in peace. To the current Ling Xiao, a Saint Realm cultivator could not even be considered a helping hand. Moreover, he had already planted a soul seal in Jin Yan. He could protect her secret. Jin Honor had providence. To Ling Xiao, she was more suitable to be the lord of this divine dynasty. Yes. Jin Yan gritted her teeth, but she didn't dare to disobey Ling Xiao. She could only obediently walk to the front of the palace and place her hand on an ancient and obscure totem in the middle of the golden palace. Buzz! Golden light instantly lit up, and mysterious veins flowed like blood vessels. From afar, it looked like a demonic bird flapping its wings. Its entire body was surrounded by raging flames, and it looked sacred and ancient. In just one breath's time, Jean Yan's face was completely pale, and even the saint aura on her body was falling at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the other hand, the door to the ancient hall suddenly opened at this moment. Golden radiance interweaved within it while immortal radiance erupted, and the ghastly and evil aura within it had undoubtedly become slightly denser. Boom! Finally, the door to the palace opened. Ling Xiao waved his hand and an array appeared in the air. It covered up the entire place. Ling Xiao's eyes were solemn as he watched Jean Yen stagger towards him. The trace of blood at the corner of her mouth was particularly glaring. "Young master, thank you for your hard work." Ling Xiao casually handed Jean Yen a pill. "Go down and guard this place. No one is allowed to come in." "Yes." Jean Yan's eyes trembled. She reached out to take the pill and walked out of the palace. It was not until she was far away that Ling Xiao waved his hand to seal the place. With a thought, the substitute puppet immediately appeared in his hand. At this time, he did not send his incarnation into the palace. The curse of this palace could kill immortals. In Ling Xiao's opinion, it would be easy to trigger the restriction if his two incarnations both cultivated immortal will. As for the ghastly aura, although it was somewhat different from the sky demon will, but all the evil in this world should have submitted to the sky demon. So, what was there to worry about? As Ling Xiao walked into the palace, a golden mist swept out like rising mist, mesmerizing the eyes. 9 stone pillars stood around the ancient palace. There were totem carvings on them. Upon closer inspection, they were exactly the same as the golden crow outside the palace. A terrifying heat swept over from afar. Raging flames also flickered in Ling Xiao's eyes as the woeful fire body was immediately activated. Golden and black spiritual flames covered his entire body, making him look like an ancient fire god, emitting a divine aura that caused one's heart to palpitate. Ling Xiao stepped forward and walked towards the end of the palace. There, he felt a ghastly aura. It was like the most extreme evil in the world, making people shudder. The palace was thousands of feet tall. It was grand and ancient like a world of its own. However, as Ling Xiao went deeper, he also saw some obvious cracks on some of the ancient pillars. They should have been left behind by the immortal who had walked into this place. Boom! Suddenly, in the depths of the golden light, there was a loud boom. Even with the level of Ling Xiao's divine soul, he felt his scalp go numb. His mind almost collapsed. "I'm here." Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and took a step forward. His body turned into a graceful swan as he sped towards the direction of the voice. Boom! Boom! The demonic sound continued in the distance, shaking people's hearts. Ling Xiao finally looked past the layers of golden light and saw a strange demonic fog in the depths of the palace. There, all the spiritual light had disappeared. There was no light in heaven and earth. Only the most profound and ghastly fluctuations were spreading. It was like a demonic sun, standing tall in the sky and intimidating everyone. In the center of the demonic sun, Ling Xiao could vaguely see a black stone plate floating and flipping. Obviously, this was the item sealed by the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. It was also the evil item known as the Green Sky Taboo. However, this aura did not seem like demonic aura to Ling Xiao. It was more like a kind of ghost aura, or rather the dark underworld aura. At that moment, under the demonic sun, a white jade divine platform was emitting divine light. It was ancient and mysterious, and there were countless golden runes on it. Furthermore, in the center of the divine platform, there was a drop of golden blood floating quietly. It was like the sun, and it surged with a terrifying yang energy. It was also because of this drop of golden blood that the evil item in the void was suppressed and restrained. The dark underworld aura surged like waves. However, the moment it touched the golden blood, it melted like snow in spring and disappeared. This aura, is it the power of the sun? Ling Zhao's expression was solemn. Even with his current cultivation level, he still felt his heart palpitate when facing this drop of golden blood. One could only imagine how tyrannical the owner of this drop of blood was. Furthermore, Ling Xiao could feel that with his current sky demon body, he would not be able to refine the terrifying power contained in this divine blood. At that moment, he finally understood why the human emperor sealed the sky with his divine blood. Such an ancient and powerful body and bloodline were so powerful that it was unimaginable. Looks like this path to immortality is truly vast, boundless, and gorgeous. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the sealed evil item. Now that he wanted to seize this item, he had to seal this drop of divine blood first. The absolute beginning divine talisman was an item that accompanied the sky demon. Perhaps it could suppress this drop of blood. However, with the strength of his soul sea, it would be difficult for him to bear the power of this divine blood. Suddenly Ling Zhao's eyes flashed. With a thought, an ancient green token appeared in front of him. It was the Ling people's token that Demon Lord Zhongyu had given him. This token could contain a strand of the Demon Lord's divine consciousness. One could imagine how powerful it was. Even though Zhongyu's cultivation level had fallen, he was still not a heavenly supreme or even a great emperor. However, just as the spiritual radiance around Ling Zhao's body fluctuated and he was about to seal the divine blood, a strange soul light suddenly lit up on the immortal platform not far away. Chapter 1073. Buzz! Soul power rippled above the immortal platform. Immediately after, Ling Xiao could feel a vast and majestic force of heaven and earth descending, wanting to envelop him. Ha 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 ha, it's been 100,000 years. Finally, someone has come here. An illusory figure gradually appeared in the soul power. It was ethereal and had a natural Tao. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and quickly guessed the origin of this remnant soul. This person was most likely the immortal who wanted to seize the divine dynasty's evil treasure. However, his physical body had collapsed and only his remnant soul was left to be suppressed by the golden blood immortal platform. After 100,000 years, his cultivation level was probably not as high as before. Who are you? Ling Zhao's eyes were indifferent. All the souls in this world did not have much power to him. The absolute beginning divine talisman was the sky demon's eternal spiritual treasure. It could not be measured by its grade. Even though this treasure was broken and no longer had its power, any soul that entered his soul sea would not have a good ending. Who am I? Ha 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 ha, young man, I felt that we were fated the moment I saw you. I am the mountain-moving sage of the immortal race, a supreme existence. After meeting me, your immortal path has truly begun. The soul shadow laughed wildly and deliberately released a wisp of soul power, causing the nether chi above his head to vibrate. The mountain-moving sage? Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed. This name sounded like a demon. Could it be that the immortal race was not the only race in the so-called celestial realm? Humph! You have not even heard of my name? It's no wonder. It's been 100,000 years. My name has probably disappeared in the long river of history. However, it doesn't matter. As long as you do as I say, I will definitely, cough, cough, make you famous in the 9 heavens. The mountain-moving sage looked arrogant. He seemed to have forgotten how his physical body was shattered by a drop of blood and his divine soul was sealed. How did you get trapped here? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows. At this moment, he also felt that this mountain-moving sage was fated with him. Although this godly soul was slightly weak, to Ling Xiao, it could still be considered as a great supplement. Humph! Back then, I took advantage of the fact that the immortal realm and the mortal realm were not completely separated to secretly descend to this world. I originally wanted to control this world, but I did not expect that there would be innate Holy Spirit blood essence in this small mortal world. Originally, with my strength, I would not be suppressed by this blood, but, the mountain-moving sage hesitated for a moment, as if he could not find a good explanation. Suddenly, he snorted coldly. Humph, you're just a little ant. Do you know what an innate divine spirit is? You wouldn't understand even if I told you. All you need to know is that by chanting my true name and obtaining my inheritance, you can become the sole ruler of the world. Oh, then how can I obtain your inheritance? Ling Xiao smiled warmly, as if he was already moved by the inheritance of this immortal. Simple. You just need to open up your soul sea and I will break free from this seal. After my divine sense enters your soul sea, I will impart you with a supreme cultivation art. At that time, as long as you can cultivate this art, you will be able to soar up to the heavens and slaughter those below the ancient god. Let me tell you the truth, I still have some inheritances in the immortal realms. The great sage of the moving mountain boasted. In his opinion, how could a young man from the mortal world know how vast the world was? As long as he left this place, he would have the opportunity to be reborn. Enter my soul sea? That's not good. With your cultivation, if you want to take over my body, won't I be powerless to resist? Ling Xiao shook his head and pretended to be worried. I am the great sage of the moving mountain. Why would I be interested in the physical body of a human ant? Kid, are you looking down on me? Not to mention you, even the ancient god Sky Demon was nothing to me when I was at my peak. The great sage of the moving mountain shouted angrily, his eyes slightly gloomy. You don't care about the Sky Demon? I don't believe it. The Sky Demon is feared by the 9 heavens. Since you are so tyrannical, why don't you help me seal this blood? Ling Xiao was unmoved. It was obvious that the great sage of the moving mountain was bragging. If he was really as tyrannical as he said, how could he have been killed here? Of course, if Ling Xiao appeared too anxious now, this immortal would definitely have doubts. Let him show off his strength first and then invite him to enter the soul sea. It would save time and effort. Why not? You, the great sage of the moving mountain, choked, and a trace of killing intent gradually appeared in his heart. How could he not know what this young man was thinking? He just wanted to exhaust his strength and then scheme to obtain the fortune here. Even if he was at his peak, he would not be able to seal the sacred blood, let alone now. However, wouldn't it be easy to fool a human ant? The sacred might contained in this sacred blood had been mostly exhausted in the past 100,000 years, and he only needed to seal it for a few breaths to deceive this person, enter his soul sea, and become his master. Do you think you are on the 3rd level? Humph, I am the great sage of the moving mountain. How can I be tricked by others? Let me beat you at your own game. All right. Today, I will let you see the divine might of the great sage of the moving mountain. As soon as he finished speaking, divine light suddenly fluctuated around the immortal figure like a sea of stars descending, containing the terrifying might of the heavens, and suppressed the golden blood. Above the golden blood, golden flames swept out like the sun, as if it was trying to break free from its restraints. However, just as the great sage of the moving mountain had said, the sacred might of the golden blood had already been depleted. As long as he used all his strength, he would definitely be able to seal it for a few breaths. If not for Ling Xiao, he would definitely die after a few breaths. However, with this young man's body as a medium, he could temporarily reside in it and wait for the future to return to the 9 heavens. Buzz. A buzzing sound resounded, and the divine soul above the golden blood immediately dimmed. The great sage of the moving mountain immediately shouted coldly, "What? Why aren't you opening your soul sea?" At this moment, he was somewhat nervous. However, the young man in front of him was the only opportunity he had waited for 100,000 years. If he missed it, his divine soul would not be able to last for more than a few years. Please come in. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, but his gaze was not on the great sage of the moving mountain. Instead, he controlled the Ling people's ancient token and stored the sacred blood into the clan token. Seeing this, the great sage of the moving mountain was stunned, and a rare trace of hesitation appeared in his eyes. F***ck? This young man actually has a treasure on him that can suppress the sacred blood? Then, could there be a supreme treasure in his soul sea that can suppress me? Has the world changed? How could there be such a terrifying young man in a mere mortal realm? Young man, I've changed my mind. My soul sea is not something you can enter just because you want to. Ling Xiao smiled gently. At this moment, the great sage of the moving mountain's divine soul was already bound by the golden blood. In his eyes, he was just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Therefore, before he could react, he felt an extremely terrifying suppressive force descend from the sky and forcefully plunge him into Ling Xiao's soul sea. Buzz. The great sage of the moving mountain's expression changed drastically. At this moment, what he saw was a heavenly soul palace towering between heaven and earth. It was tall and majestic. Above the demonic palace, a demonic sun bloomed with thousands of rays of light, devouring all the light in this place. It was a kind of boundless and ancient demonic will that could suppress heaven and earth. Gulp. The great sage of the moving mountain swallowed hard. However, he saw a black-robed figure standing quietly above the soul palace with a gentle smile on his face. You? Who exactly are you? Me? I am the sky demon that you said you did not care about at all. Ling Xiao's eyes were playful. He suddenly pressed his palm down, and the absolute beginning divine talisman immediately released a monstrous soul light, completely engulfing the great sage of the moving mountain, who was in a daze and whose eyes were filled with fear. Crack, crack. Chapter 1074. Buzz. The Soul Palace suddenly grew several thousand feet tall. Ling Xiao's eyes were clear as he quietly felt the pleasure brought by the increase in power. Even though the remnant soul of an immortal clan expert had been suppressed for 100,000 years, it still allowed Ling Xiao's divine soul to break through 4 realms and reach the 6th stage of the Saint Realm. Judging from the current realm of the experts in the Azure world, the power of this divine soul was comparable to that of an ordinary immortal clan elder or even a sect master. However, from the immortal clan's soul sea memory, Ling Xiao also saw his guess about this drop of divine blood. The power of the sun and the innate divine spirit. This drop of blood was very likely the essence blood of an immemorial demon, illumination. Could it be that the ancestors of the Golden Crow 4 dynasties were once servants of this great demon? Yin Yang and 4 divisions. It was reasonable. In that case, what could be the evil being that could cause such a great demon that had long since surpassed the 9 heavens to feel fear? Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked up at the source of the nether light. Without the suppression of the divine blood, a green inky stone plate quietly circled there. However, what surprised Ling Xiao was that although the stone plate was surrounded by an eerie nether intent, it did not emit a strong power. In other words, although it was a treasure, it did not seem to be an offensive treasure. Ling Xiao frowned slightly and waved his hand. The ancient plate immediately fell from the sky and landed in his palm. It was obvious that the stone plate was not complete. There were many mysterious runes engraved on it that Ling Xiao did not recognize at all. However, inexplicably, the eerie intent contained in the stone plate reminded Ling Xiao of someone. Chen Qingshan. Back then, this little disciple of the immortal sect had awakened the sacred body of the Nether King by chance. The aura emitted from his body was somewhat similar to this stone plate. Interesting. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly, and the corners of his mouth suddenly curled up into a smile. A few days ago, Chen Qingshan had sent news that at the border of the Shenwu Empire, there was an evil sect, the Gan Tian Divine Sect, that used the art of Pluto to control the people. They collected blood spirits and nurtured a mysterious holy infant. This holy infant's cultivation wasn't high, and he was only in the exalted realm. However, his origins were rather mysterious, and he was secretly searching for the netherworld disk. Could it be that the secret of the mysterious stone plate was with the holy infant? A month's time was enough for Ling Xiao to complete his plan and gain full control of the 4 great divine empires. He would be able to recreate the might of this board. At that time, it would be a great opportunity for him to show the righteousness of the human race and kill this evil demon for the world. As for Chen Qingshan, he was the mandate of heaven and had fallen into this situation. Perhaps this evil thing would be his opportunity to break through. How could a dark heavens will be able to defy the heavens without a sufficient foundation? He just didn't know what kind of ancient secret Ling Xiao would uncover this time. Buzz! With a wave of his hand, Ling Xiao kept the ancient plate into his soul sea. With the absolute beginning ancestral symbol and the glass divine pagoda suppressing him, he was not afraid that others would notice anything. However, just as Ling Xiao was about to turn around and leave the main hall, he suddenly heard a cry of surprise from his soul sea. Feng Ling's figure stepped out of the void with a puzzled look on her face. What did you put into your soul sea just now? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. He summoned the ancient plate again and handed it to Feng Ling. Previously, when he was in the heart of the space-time divine beast, Ling Xiao had seen the changes in Feng Ling. This girl seemed to have suddenly become much quieter. Moreover, she seemed to know more about those ancient beasts than Gui Ying. Ling Xiao had many guesses about Feng Ling's identity, but now it seemed that he had underestimated this girl's origins. Tying dark qi? Feng Ling frowned slightly, and a look of confusion flashed across her delicate face. Tying dark qi? Hearing this, Ling Xiao's expression didn't change much. Since the mountain-moving sage said that this drop of sacred blood was the blood essence of the Sun Saint spirit, then it was normal for it to be used to suppress an item of tying. However, Ling Xiao was slightly puzzled. With this saint spirit's abilities and cultivation, why did she only seal this stone plate and not completely destroy it? Ling Xiao, this thing is not complete. Feng Ling casually threw the stone plate back to Ling Xiao. What surprised the latter was that at this moment, he actually felt that the sinister and evil aura on the stone plate seemed to have been sealed, and it slowly recovered after a while. That's right, there should be 3 more. Feng Ling, how did you know about this? Ling Xiao's eyes were calm, but he was increasingly puzzled. From the beginning, he didn't feel a trace of spiritual power fluctuation from Feng Ling. However, it was very inexplicable. The power that emanated from her every move seemed to be able to seal the heavens and the earth. I don't know either, but Feng Ling wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, she sighed softly. Ling Xiao, if there comes a day when I leave, will you miss me? Leave? Where to? Didn't you say that you were born in the glazed pagoda and won't go anywhere? Perhaps it will still take some time. Feng Ling did not reply. Instead, she raised her head and looked at the sky outside the hall. It was getting stronger and stronger. That kind of hatred that was about to be broken. Oh, if you need me to do anything, just tell me. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. His tone was extremely calm. If there comes a day, I want to have a good fight with you. Feng Ling nodded with a serious expression, and a rare look of longing appeared on her little face. Just like how you hit Nian Qingyan back then. Ling Xiao's eyes trembled as he shook his head helplessly. He didn't expect that this girl would still remember this matter after her memories were awakened. This power of tying is not a threat to me. If you need me to do anything, just call me. After speaking, Feng Ling looked at Ling Xiao deeply and was about to disappear. Feng Ling, there is something I need your help with. Ling Xiao smiled awkwardly. In his memory, this was the first time Feng Ling had taken the initiative to help him. Perhaps she really did have a reason to leave. Speak. Feng Ling crossed her arms and looked at Ling Xiao with disdain. Can you seal the dark qi from the netherworld plate on the divine platform? Ling Xiao grinned. His eyes were full of thoughts. With the strange power on Feng Ling's body to seal the dark qi, even if a Supreme Being powerhouse came personally, they wouldn't be able to find any clues. This way, he could set up a game of chess without any worries. He could toy with the 4 dynasties and even the entire Azure world in the palm of his hand. Isn't that simple? Feng Ling reached out her hand. The dark qi on the netherworld plate turned into a long dragon, and she held it in her hand. Then, a ray of light bloomed around her body. It wrapped around the dark qi and sealed it in its original position. From the outside, the scene in the hall was the same as before. Thank you. Ling Xiao nodded with satisfaction. After Feng Ling's figure disappeared, he lifted his feet and walked out of the hall. Jin Yan didn't go too far. When she saw Ling Xiao walking over, there was a trace of joy on her face. Fortunately, nothing happened to this young master in the divine dynasty. Otherwise, even if she and the patriarch had submitted, the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty would not be able to escape destruction. Young master, use the bloodline of the Golden Crow to reseal this hall. I don't want a third person to know what happened today. Ling Xiao said indifferently and walked out of the hall. However, just as he was about to disappear, he suddenly stopped. In a few days there might be chaos in the 4 dynasties. Remember, don't tell anyone that the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty has submitted to me. As for Jean Han, you can remind her alone, but don't tell her. Now that he wanted to get the remaining 3 fragments of the stone plate, he had to create chaos in the 4 dynasties. Only then would he have a chance to get the treasures. However, these 4 evil treasures are evil. I, Ling Xiao, am righteous. Why would I covet them? So, the one who will get the treasures is probably the Sky Demon. What does it have to do with me, Ling Xiao? Yes, young master. Jin Yan's beautiful eyes narrowed as she bowed deeply. Chapter 1075. 100 miles away from the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. Ling Xiao stood on the peak of a green mountain with his hands behind his back. Behind him, a secret guard bowed and did not get up for a long time. Have you found out? Since the moment he arrived at the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty, he had sent a secret guard to the other 3 holy dynasties to find out the secrets of the 3 dynasties and to find an opportunity to set up a trap. My lord, the Yanlong dynasty and the Black Tortoise dynasty are very powerful and have the ambition to conquer the 4 dynasties. The Black Tortoise Crown Prince is pursuing the Golden Crow eldest princess because he wants to join forces with the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty to suppress the Yanlong dynasty. There is no enmity between the Yanlong dynasty and the Gu Lin Holy Dynasty. However, the second prince of the Gu Lin Holy Dynasty, Gu Yu, has a childhood sweetheart who joined an ancient sect in the spiritual god border region. A year ago, the Yanlong Crown Prince, Yanzheng, happened to pass by the sect and forcibly took her into the imperial palace of the Yan dynasty. Since then, Gu Yu hated Yanzheng. However, the Yanlong Crown Prince is very powerful. It is said that he is the most powerful genius of the 4 dynasties. The 2 of them agreed to fight to the death in the Cloud Sea City. Oh? His childhood sweetheart was taken? Fight to the death? Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. No wonder Gu Yu was so lucky. He had such a tragic experience. Inflammation? The most powerful genius of the 4 dynasties? That's right. My lord, the Yanlong Crown Prince is very violent and cruel. He has 2 divine guards. One is the Dragon Guard and the other is the Flame Guard who hides in the dark to gather information. He has the bearing of an emperor. Since Yanzheng has a grudge against Gu Yu, he must have arranged flame guards to keep an eye on him. Go and find them. Ling Zhao's eyes were cold and he had made up his mind. Yes, After the secret guard left, Ling Xiao turned his head and looked in the direction of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. Finally, he started to walk towards the Gu Lin Holy Dynasty. It was obvious that Gu Yu had gone to the sovereign's secret realm in search of fortune, hoping to defeat Yan Jing in this battle. However, he hadn't obtained any good fortune and had almost died. Now that the battle was about to begin, he must be feeling very uneasy. Don't worry, Prince Gu Yu. I'm here. In that case, you can die in peace. A day passed in the blink of an eye. At this moment, in front of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty's imperial palace, a beautiful figure in a feather robe slowly walked over. At this moment, Jean Han had lost her usual arrogance and haughtiness. Her jet-black hair hung loosely before her forehead and ears, and she seemed listless and dejected. Even her eyes were filled with a wisp of defeat. In the end, she put down her dignity and her status, but she still couldn't get into the young man's eyes. The Golden Crow Divine Dynasty was now a stranger. It's the eldest princess. Greetings, eldest princess. Outside the hall, the two guards bowed, but there was some doubt and surprise between their brows. What was wrong with the eldest princess? Why did she look like she had lost her soul? Sigh. Jean Han sighed softly. Originally, with her cultivation level, it would take her at most one day to rush back to the Divine Dynasty from the Divine Battlefield. However, along the way she was at a loss. She didn't know how to face her mother and patriarch, so she had to walk for almost 3 days. Han. Suddenly, a surprised voice came from afar. Jean Han-er's expression turned serious. She looked up and found herself in front of the Divine Dynasty's imperial palace. Mother, Jean Han wanted to say something but stopped. When she saw Jean Yan's pale face and weak breath, her eyes suddenly narrowed. Mother, what happened to you? The decline of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty was now common knowledge among the 4 dynasties. Although the patriarch often appeared in the past few years, anyone with a discerning eye could see that it was just the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty's last act of intimidation. Once Jin Yuang died, the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty and the Flaming Dragon Divine Dynasty would definitely think of ways to swallow the Divine Dynasty and unify the Spirit God realm. I'm fine. Han, why did you come back so late? Jin Yan glared at Jean Han. Although her breath was weak, there was a bright smile on her face. Jean Han was obviously stunned. She seemed to have not seen her mother smile like this for a long time. Perhaps, her mother was still hoping that she would be doted on by Master Ling Xiao so that she could provide protection for the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty in the future? Mother, I'm useless, plop. Jean Han fell to her knees with a thump, her eyes brimming with tears. In the end, she had failed her mother's expectations and the trust of the people in the world. What was the use of being proud? Now it seemed that she was just asking for humiliation. Han, why do you say that? If it weren't for Han, why would Master Ling Xiao come to our dynasty personally and give us a divine treasure to help the patriarch break through his cultivation level? Get up quickly. Han has done a great service to the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty. Jean Yan smiled gently and walked to Jean Han. She reached out to hold her hand and helped her up from the ground. What? Jean Han-er's face was completely blank. She looked up at the sincere smile on Jean Yan's face. Her lips trembled slightly and she could not say a word. Mother, did you say the young master was here? Yes. Why did you come back so late? You could have seen the young master a little earlier. Jean Yan rolled her eyes at Jean Han and pulled her to sit on the throne. From Jean Han-er's reaction, Jean Yan had guessed that her trip to the Ling people was not very fruitful. Even so, Master Ling Xiao still came to the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty and gave her a great opportunity. Of course, in the eyes of the young master, the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty was just a tool to help him control the Spirit Divine realm and get the protection of the 4 evil treasures. However, without the young master, the Golden Crow divine dynasty would have been destroyed sooner or later. This kindness was like giving her a new life. Moreover, more importantly, Jean Yen could feel that the young master had not planted a soul seal on Jean Han. Otherwise, why would she be so shocked? Could it be that young master had purposely surprised her? If that was the case, maybe the two of them could still have a chance? Mother, what exactly happened? Jean Han-er's eyes were burning. Her originally disappointed and hesitant heart was suddenly filled with an inexplicable hope. This morning, Master Ling Xiao came personally and gave us the divine tree Fu Sang. The forefather and I have submitted to the young master. From now on, the Golden Crow divine dynasty will serve the young master. The corners of Jean Yan's mouth curled up. She gently stroked Jean Han-er's hair and said, Han-er, looks like the young master really treats you well. However, this matter cannot be made public. The young master has his own plans. Perhaps this time, not only will the Golden Crow divine dynasty be resolved, but we will also be able to conquer the 4 dynasties. What? Jean Han-er's body trembled. Her red lips parted slightly. After hesitating for a while, she fell to her knees and looked at the sky. Han-er. Thank you, young master. Beep. The Daughter of Destiny has submitted. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 6,000 luck points and 60,000 villain points. Beep. Since the Daughter of Destiny has less than 10,000 luck points, the system reward is halved. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 2% of Destiny Forging points. Beep. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a luck plundering talisman. Thousands of miles away in the Cloud Sea City, Ling Xiao sat in a teahouse and looked at a pretty girl who was playing the zither with her head lowered. There was not a trace of surprise on his face. Jean Han-er's Dao heart had almost been crushed by herself. She was a person who was filled with despair and had an uncertain future. Now, she suddenly realized that all her difficulties had been eliminated. If she still refused to submit, then it could only be said that she should be killed. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.